The storm was supposed to kill her. The bullet in her leg was supposed to finish the job. And when the helicopter's rotors faded into the howling dark, leaving nothing but wind and blood on ice, everyone back at base would check a box. KIA, killed in action, clean, final. But Staff Sergeant Lena Whiteout Rourke wasn't dead. She was something worse, forgotten, bleeding into a white void where enemy voices moved closer through the blizzard, calm and confident, already counting bodies. The cold didn't care. The storm didn't care. And the people who left her behind? They'd moved on. Most soldiers pray for rescue in moments like this. Lena Rourke did something different. She stood up, locked her rifle, and walked straight into the teeth of the enemy outpost. Not for revenge, not for survival, but to teach a lesson no one would forget. Before we dive in, if you're ready to see what happens when the military writes someone off too soon, stick with me until the very end. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels, and let's get into it. The night Lena Rourke was left for dead, the temperature was negative 18 degrees Fahrenheit and falling. The insertion had gone smooth, too smooth, the kind of smooth that makes experienced operators nervous. 4-person recon team, call sign Revenant 2, dropped via Blackhawk into the Kharkova Ridge, a frozen no-man's land tucked between borders no government would admit on paper. The mission brief was clinical: observe, document, exfil. No contact, no heroics. In and out like ghosts. Lena hit the ground first, boots crunching into knee-deep powder, rifle up and scanning. The world was a monochrome nightmare. White earth, white sky, wind that didn't blow so much as devour. Her HUD display flickered in the cold, the thermal overlay struggling to cut through the storm. Revenant 2 actual, boots down, she whispered into her throat mic. Wind's hell. Visibility near zero. Copy Whiteout, came the reply from Lieutenant Pardee, their handler back at FOB Granite, 70 clicks south. Stay tight. Weather window closes in 4 hours. You miss it. You're spending the night. Understood. Behind her, the rest of the team materialized from the storm. Corporal Danny Ruiz, their comms specialist, hauling the SATCOM rig like it weighed nothing. Private First Class Yuki Tanaka, point woman, moving with the kind of predatory grace that made you forget she was barely 22. And Sergeant First Class Marcus Holt, demo and heavy weapons, a brick wall of a man who spoke 3 sentences a day and meant every one. Comms check, Lena ordered. Net's green, Ruiz said, tapping his headset. SATCOM's good. We're golden. Thermals? Degraded but functional, Tanaka replied, adjusting her scope. Can't see worth a damn past 50 meters. Holt just grunted, chambering around into his SAW with a metallic clack that sounded too loud in the silence. Lena nodded. Diamond formation, Tanaka on point. Move. They moved. The Kharkova Ridge was a place where maps lied. Officially, it was neutral territory, a stretch of frozen highland claimed by no one, valued by no one, ignored by everyone. Unofficially, it was a highway for black market arms, smuggled tech, and foreign operatives who didn't want to be seen. Intelligence had flagged an uptick in vehicle movement, heat signatures, encrypted comms traffic. Command wanted eyes on the ground, so they sent Revenant 2. Lena led them northeast, following a dry riverbed that cut through the hills like a scar. The wind screamed overhead, but down in the channel, it was almost bearable. Almost. Snow piled in drifts taller than a man. Every step required effort. Every breath burned. Contact 11 o'clock, Tanaka whispered suddenly, dropping to a knee. Everyone froze. Lena brought up her rifle, clicked on her thermal. Through the scope, she saw them, 2 figures, maybe 300 meters out, moving perpendicular to their position. Bulky silhouettes. Rifles. Definitely not local hunters. Patrol, she murmured. They didn't see us. Hold position. They waited motionless as the enemy patrol drifted past like shadows in the storm. 30 seconds. A minute. Then gone. Clear, Lena said. Keep moving. But the unease settled in her gut like a stone. Patrols meant infrastructure. Infrastructure meant they were close. 2 hours in, they found the outpost. It sat in a shallow valley, ringed by ridges on 3 sides. Natural cover, defensible, smart placement. Prefab buildings arranged in a loose square, barracks, supply depot, communications tower, vehicle bay. Fencing, razor wire, watchtowers at each corner. Floodlights cutting cones of dirty yellow through the blizzard. Maybe 40 personnel, if intel was accurate. Lena glassed it from the high ground, her scope fogging slightly despite the anti-fog coating. Revenant 2 actual to granite, she whispered. Eyes on target. Confirming grid November 742 Whiskey. Multiple structures, active personnel, fortified perimeter. Requesting clearance to document and withdraw. Static crackled in her ear. Granite, do you copy? More static. Then a burst of garbled syllables, half drowned in interference. Say again, Granite, you're breaking up. Nothing. Ruiz was already working the SATCOM, fingers flying across the keypad. No joy on primary comms, trying secondary frequency. He paused, frowning. That's weird. What's weird? Lena asked. We're being jammed, hard. Someone's flooding the spectrum with white noise. He looked up, eyes wide. They know we're here. And that's when the mortars hit. But the first shell landed 30 meters behind them, a flash of orange fire and a sound like the world splitting open. The concussion wave threw Lena forward, her face slamming into frozen dirt, ears ringing, vision swimming. Move, she screamed, or thought she screamed, couldn't hear her own voice. Another impact, closer this time. Snow and shrapnel geysered into the air. She felt something hot slice across her shoulder, superficial but bleeding. Holt was already returning fire, his saw roaring into the storm, suppressing something Lena couldn't even see yet. Ambush, Tanaka yelled, dragging Ruiz to his feet. They boxed us in. And then the muzzle flashes started, strobing through the blizzard like camera bulbs, disciplined 3-round bursts stitching the ground around them. The enemy had been waiting, watching. They'd walked right into a kill zone. Lena's training kicked in, cold and mechanical. Holt, base of fire. Tanaka, Ruiz, fall back to the dry wash. I'll cover. She fired in controlled bursts, aiming at shapes more than targets, forcing the enemy to keep their heads down. Brass casings tumbled into the snow, hissing. Her rifle bucked against her shoulder, familiar and brutal. Holt's SAW kept hammering, a solid wall of lead that bought them seconds. Tanaka and Ruiz scrambled backward, half running, half sliding down the slope toward cover. Lena, move, Holt bellowed. She fired one more burst, then turned and ran, boots slipping on ice, lungs burning, the storm swallowing her whole. She didn't see the shooter, just felt the impact, like someone swung a sledgehammer into her left thigh. Her leg buckled. She went down hard, tumbling, the world spinning into a blur of white and red and pain that didn't feel real until it suddenly did, sharp and absolute and everywhere. She slid to a stop at the bottom of the slope, gasping, tasting copper. Blood. Her blood. She looked down. The bullet had punched through her thigh, just above the knee, entrance wound the size of a dime, exit wound the size of a quarter, bleeding fast. Not arterial, thank God, but bad. Real bad. Lena! Ruiz was beside her, hands already pulling a tourniquet from his kit. I got you! I got you! Do it! She hissed through clenched teeth. He wrapped the tourniquet high and tight, cranking the windlass until the bleeding slowed to a seep. The pain spiked, white-hot, then settled into a deep, throbbing ache that made her stomach turn. Can you walk? Tanaka asked, eyes scanning the ridge above them. Lena tested her weight. The leg screamed. She bit back a curse. Not fast. Holt slid down beside them, breathing hard. We got maybe 2 minutes before they flank us. Exfil birds are only shot. Ruiz was already on the radio, keying the emergency frequency. Granite, this is Revenant 2, taking effective fire. 1 urgent surgical, requesting immediate extract. Over. Static. Granite, how copy? Nothing. Ruiz's face went pale. We're still jammed. I can't punch through. Above them, voices echoed through the storm, foreign cadence, organized, closing in. Lena forced herself to think past the pain. We move. Now, South Ridge. There's a depression we passed on the way in, big enough to hide. We hole up, try to break comms, call for extract. And if we can't, Tanaka asked quietly. Lena met her eyes. Then we make them work for it. They moved like wounded animals, stumbling, desperate, every step costing more than the last. Lena leaned on Holt, one arm slung over his massive shoulders, her rifle dangling useless from its sling. Her leg was a dead weight, dragging through the snow, leaving a dark trail behind them. The depression wasn't much, a shallow bowl in the hillside, ringed by boulders and scrub brush, barely concealed. But it was something. They collapsed into it, Holt lowering Lena gently while Tanaka and Ruiz set up a hasty perimeter. "Ruiz, comms," Lena ordered, her voice tight with pain. He nodded, already pulling out the handheld, cycling through frequencies. "Still jammed. Whoever these guys are, they've got serious kit." "Keep trying." Minutes passed. The storm howled. Somewhere above them, voices called out, search pattern, coordinated, professional. Then, through the static, a sound, rotors. Ruiz's head snapped up. "That's ours! That's the bird!" Lena grabbed the radio. "Granite, Revenant 2. If you can hear us, we are at Rally Point Echo, 1 urgent surgical. Request immediate extract. Over." The rotors grew louder, closer. And then, impossibly, horrifically, they started to fade. "No," Tanaka whispered. Lana keyed the radio again, desperation bleeding into her voice. "Granite, we are still in the field. Do not leave us. Granite." The sound of the helicopter dissolved into the wind. Gone. Ruiz stared at the radio like it had betrayed him. They left us." "They think we're dead," Holt said flatly. "Jammed comms, no beacon, middle of a firefight. They wrote us off." Lena's chest tightened. Not panic. Worse. The cold certainty that they were alone. Tanaka checked her magazine. "So what do we do?" Lena pressed her cheek against the frozen ground, eyes closed, forcing herself to breathe, to think. The voices were getting closer. She could hear boots crunching through snow, methodical, patient. She opened her eyes. "We split up," she said quietly. "What?" Ruiz's voice cracked. "They're hunting for. We give them 3. Lena pushed herself upright, ignoring the scream of protest from her leg. "Holt, Tanaka, Ruiz, you 3 move south, draw them off, fast and loud. Make them chase you." "And you?" Holt asked, though his tone said he already knew. "I stay, slow them down, buy you time." "Bullshit," Tanaka spat. "You can barely walk." "Exactly. I'm dead weight. You move faster without me." Lena's voice was calm, final. "This isn't a debate. It's an order." Ruiz looked like he might argue. Holt just stared at her, jaw tight. "How long do we wait?" Holt asked. "You don't. You move until you break comms, call for extract, and get the hell out. That's the mission now." "Lena, go." For a moment, no one moved. Then Holt nodded once, slow and deliberate. He reached out, gripped her shoulder hard enough to hurt. "Don't do anything stupid." "Too late for that." Tanaka hesitated, then leaned in, voice low. "If you make it out of this, I'm buying you a drink so expensive it'll hurt." "Deal." Ruiz looked like he might cry. Instead, he handed her his sidearm, a Beretta M9, fully loaded. "Extra mag in the grip, make 'em count." "Always do." They left without another word, shadows swallowed by the storm. And then Lena Rourke was alone. She lay flat in the snow, rifle across her chest, breathing slow and controlled. The pain in her leg was a distant thing now, pushed down behind a wall of focus. She counted her assets: 1 rifle, 90 rounds, 1 sidearm, 30 rounds, 2 frag grenades, 1 combat knife, 1 morphine auto-injector, and a tourniquet keeping her from bleeding out. Not much, but enough. The voices grew louder. 2 of them, maybe 3, moving in a search pattern. Speaking a language she didn't know but understood anyway. The cadence of soldiers doing a job. She stayed perfectly still. Boots crunched closer. 10 meters. 5. A figure appeared through the blizzard, tall, broad-shouldered, rifle up and scanning. He passed within arm's reach, so close Lena could see the frost on his collar, the steam of his breath. He didn't see her, neither did the second scout, or the third. They moved past, confident, unhurried, and Lena let them go. Because she wasn't trying to survive. Not anymore. She was trying to win. When the voices faded, Lena began to move, not south, not toward safety, but north, toward the outpost. Every meter was agony. She used her rifle like a crutch, dragging her wounded leg through the snow, leaving a trail she didn't care about anymore. The morphine would help, but she was saving it. Pain kept you sharp. Pain kept you alive. The storm battered her, wind slapping snow into her face hard enough to sting. Her gloves were soaked through. Her fingers were going numb. Hypothermia was a clock with no snooze button, and it was ticking loud. But through the white chaos, she could see it, a faint amber glow on the horizon. The outpost. 2 kilometers. Maybe less. She checked her watch. 0247 hours. 4 hours until dawn, 4 hours until the storm was supposed to break. 4 hours to do the impossible. Lena Rourke smiled, cold and sharp as a knife. "All right," she whispered to the wind. "Let's see if you bastards are ready for a ghost." She pulled the morphine injector from her kit, jammed it into her thigh, and felt the chemical warmth spread through her veins. Not relief, just distance. The pain was still there, but it didn't matter as much. She stripped weight, SATCOM rig, empty magazines, anything that would slow her down. Kept the rifle, the sidearm, the grenades, the knife. Essentials. Then she started walking. The outpost grew larger with every agonizing step, lights brighter, structures more defined. She could see the guard towers now, 2 figures in each one, stamping their feet huddled near portable heaters. Lazy. Comfortable. Nobody expected a wounded ghost to walk into their teeth. Lena found a vantage point on the high ground overlooking the eastern approach, a cluster of boulders that gave her cover and a clean line of sight. She settled in, ignoring the way her leg throbbed in protest, and glassed the outpost through her scope. 2 guards in the northeast tower, 2 in the southeast. Rotating patrols along the fence line, 3-man teams, staggered intervals. Vehicle depot on the west side, 5 trucks, maybe 6. Communications tower in the center, antenna array lit up like a Christmas tree. She memorized the layout, the patterns, the weak points, and then she started planning. The first shot was the hardest. Not technically, Lena had made harder shots in worse conditions, but this one meant commitment. Once she pulled that trigger, there was no going back, no rescue, no mercy. She exhaled slowly, let her heartbeat settle, and put the crosshairs on the northeast tower. The guard was young, couldn't have been more than 25, clean-shaven, smoking a cigarette while his partner fiddled with the heater. He looked bored, tired, human. Lena didn't let herself think about that. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, muffled slightly by the wind. The guard's head snapped back, cigarette tumbling from his lips as he crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. His partner didn't even notice. Too focused on the heater, back turned. Lena cycled the bolt, smooth and mechanical, and fired again. 2 down. The storm swallowed the sound. No alarm, no shouts, just wind and snow and silence. She shifted position, moved to a new angle, and took the southeast tower the same way, patient, methodical, 1 shot per target. The bodies slumped over the railings, invisible in the blizzard unless you knew where to look. 4 down. The fence patrol was next. Lena waited until they were at the farthest point from the main buildings, isolated, exposed. 3-round burst, center mass. They dropped without a sound. 7 down. She reloaded, her hands steady despite the cold, despite the morphine haze creeping at the edges of her vision. 7 enemy combatants eliminated, and the outpost still had no idea she was there. But that was about to change. Lena moved down from the high ground, using the storm as cover, closing the distance to the fence line. Her legs screamed with every step, the tourniquet cutting off circulation, the wound leaking blood despite the pressure. She could feel herself slowing down, the cold digging deeper, the morphine wearing thin. She found the blind spot she'd identified earlier, a gap between the northeast tower and the fence corner, just wide enough to slip through if you didn't mind razor wire. Lena minded, but not enough to stop. She pulled her combat knife, worked the blade under the lock mechanism on the gate, and applied pressure. Slow, patient, listening for the click. It came. The gate swung open, silent on well-oiled hinges. Lena stepped inside the outpost. The warmth hit her like a physical blow. Diesel fumes, metal, cooked food, the stink of too many bodies in too small a space. Her breath fogged the air. Her vision swam. She pressed herself against the wall of the nearest building, forcing her body to adjust, forcing the dizziness to pass. Voices drifted from inside. Laughter, casual conversation, the clink of dishes. A radio played something upbeat and foreign. They had no idea. Lena pulled the first grenade from her belt, checked the pin, and started moving toward the communications tower. The junction box was easy to find, mounted on the exterior wall, locked with a padlock that her knife made short work of. She popped it open, studied the mess of wires and circuits inside, and placed the grenade carefully in the center. 5-second fuse. Plenty of time. She pulled the pin, let the spoon fly, and walked away. The explosion wasn't as loud as she'd expected. The storm muffled it, turned it into a muffled crump that rattled windows but didn't shatter them. But it was enough. Lights flickered. The radio cut out mid-song. And then the alarms started. Old Soviet-era klaxons, wailing like dying animals, red emergency lights strobing through the compound. Doors burst open. Soldiers poured out, half-dressed, confused, grabbing sidearms and rifles, shouting over each other in 3 different languages. Chaos. Lena smiled. She moved through the shadows, a ghost in the strobing red light, and headed for the armory. The armory door was reinforced steel, locked tight, but the fuel cans stacked beside it weren't. Lena unscrewed the caps, poured diesel in a wide arc around the entrance, and pulled her second grenade. This time, she didn't wait. The blast was catastrophic, fire blooming in a tight, focused ball that punched through the door and ignited the fuel inside. Ammunition started cooking off immediately, bullets popping like fireworks, tracers streaking through the smoke. The compound erupted. Soldiers scattered, some running toward the fire, others away from it. Officers screamed orders that no one followed. Someone was firing blindly into the storm, convinced they were under attack from outside. Lena picked her targets carefully. Leaders first, anyone with a radio, anyone trying to organize a response. She fired when it mattered, moved when it didn't, staying ahead of the chaos she'd created. She hijacked a radio from a dead officer, listened to the frantic comms traffic, and keyed the mic. All units, enemy contact at the vehicle depot. Repeat, vehicle depot under attack. She said it in English, but with enough static and panic that it didn't matter. Half the soldiers turned and sprinted toward the depot, packing themselves into the open like targets on a range. Lena switched to a roof, found an angle, and opened fire. The firefight lasted 3 minutes. 3 minutes of controlled, methodical violence. Lena shooting, moving, reloading, shooting again. She didn't spray, didn't panic, just picked targets and dropped them, one by one, until the magazine ran dry and she switched to the sidearm. The Beretta bucked in her hand, smaller but just as lethal. She aimed for center mass, for heads when the angle was right, for anything that would stop a threat permanently. Her leg gave out halfway through. She went down hard, pain spiking so sharp it whited out her vision for a second. When it cleared, there was blood pooling under her, her own, leaking past the tourniquet, soaking into the snow. She forced herself upright, using a railing for support, and kept firing. Shot. And then, through the smoke and screaming, a voice cut through the radio, calm, authoritative, speaking perfect English with just a trace of an accent. To the American operator currently destroying my outpost, I am offering terms. Lena froze, sidearm still raised. The voice continued. You've made your point. You're skilled, resourceful, but you're also wounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. Surrender now, and I promise you will be treated according to the conventions of war. Medical care, repatriation, no reprisals. Lena stared at the radio in her hand, breathing hard. I know you can hear me, the voice said, and I know you're weighing your options. So let me make this simple. You die here, or you live. Choose. For a long moment, Lena didn't move. Then she keyed the mic. This isn't negotiation, she said, her voice flat and cold. "This is a lesson." She fired, not at a soldier, but at the fuel line running beneath the nearest transport truck. The explosion was blinding. Orange fire bloomed against the white night, a pillar of flame that climbed into the storm and shook the ground like an earthquake. The truck disintegrated, shrapnel ripping through the vehicle depot, igniting 2 more trucks in a chain reaction that turned the western side of the outpost into an inferno. The shockwave knocked Lena off her feet. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision blurred. Fire roared overhead, metal shrieked, and somewhere in the chaos, men were screaming. She forced herself up, one hand then the other, dragging her useless leg beneath her. Her rifle was gone, lost in the blast. Her sidearm was empty. All she had left was the knife. Good enough. She limped through the wreckage, grabbed a working radio from a dead hand, and staggered toward the edge of the compound. The storm was breaking. Dawn bled pale and cold across the horizon, and Lena Rourke was still standing. She made it 300 meters before she collapsed. Not from the wound, not from the cold, just exhaustion. Her body finally giving up, telling her she'd done enough, pushed far enough. She lay there in the snow, staring up at the lightening sky, and keyed the radio one last time, switching to her team's emergency frequency. "Revenant 2, actual to Granite," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Coordinates November the 7-4. 2 whiskey, 1 survivor. Request immediate extract." Static. Then, impossibly, "Whiteout? Is that you?" Pardee. Alive. Listening. Lena closed her eyes. "Yeah, it's me." "Jesus Christ, we thought—" His voice cracked. "Hold tight. Birds inbound. ETA 12 minutes. Copy." She let the radio fall from her hand and stared at the sky. 12 minutes. She could do 12 minutes. The 12 minutes stretched into eternity. Lena lay in the snow, staring at the sky as it shifted from black to bruised purple to pale gray. Her body had stopped shivering, not a good sign. Hypothermia didn't announce itself with fanfare. It crept in quiet, shut down systems one by one, and made you feel warm right before it killed you. She forced herself to move. Small movements, fingers flexing, toes curling inside boots she could barely feel. Keep the blood flowing, stay awake. The morphine was wearing off, replaced by a deep grinding ache that radiated from her thigh up through her hip and into her spine. The radio crackled. "Whiteout, Falcon 2-1 is 3 minutes out. Pop smoke if you're able." Lena reached for her kit with numb fingers, found the smoke grenade, pulled the pin. Orange smoke billowed into the dawn, a bright splash of color against the white wasteland. "Visual on smoke," the pilot confirmed, "coming in hot." The Black Hawk appeared like a dark angel, rotors chopping the air, nose dipped low as it flared for landing. Snow exploded outward in a furious cloud. The side door slid open, and a pararescue jumper, PJ, they called them, hit the ground running. He was beside her in seconds, hands already moving, checking vitals, assessing damage. Young face, old eyes. "Hey, Sergeant, stay with me. What's your name?" "Rourke," she managed. "Lena." "Okay, Lena, I'm Sanchez. We're getting you out of here." He keyed his radio. "Patient is conscious, responsive, single GSW to left thigh, tourniquet in place, suspected hypothermia, prepping for immediate evac." Another PJ appeared with a litter. They moved her onto it with practiced efficiency, gentle but fast, no wasted motion. The pain spiked as they lifted her, white-hot and absolute. Lena bit down hard, tasted blood. "Sorry," Sanchez said. "Almost there." They loaded her into the helo. The door gunner gave her a thumbs up, meant to be reassuring probably. The engines roared. The bird lifted, banking hard, and the Kharkova Ridge fell away beneath them. Lena closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. She woke to fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. Field hospital. Tent walls rippling in the wind. IV line in her arm, warm blankets piled on top of her. Her leg was bandaged, elevated, throbbing in time with her heartbeat, but manageable. Alive. A nurse appeared. Older woman, Korean maybe, with the kind of calm competence that came from seeing too much. "Welcome back, Sergeant." How's the pain? Been worse, Lena lied. The nurse smiled like she knew better. Doctor will be in shortly. Try not to move that leg. Lena nodded, then noticed the figure standing near the entrance. Lieutenant Pardee, arms crossed, face unreadable. He waited until the nurse left, then walked over and sat in the chair beside her cot. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. We thought you were dead, Pardee said finally. All of you. Comms went dark, we heard gunfire, then nothing. Weather was too bad to send another bird. We waited as long as we could, but he trailed off, jaw tight. Command made the call, declared you KIA. I know. Do you? His voice hardened. Because right now, I've got a situation. 3 of your team members showed up 6 hours ago, alive and mostly intact, and then you crawled out of the snow after single-handedly destroying an enemy installation that we didn't even know existed. Lena met his eyes. You're welcome. That's not... Pardee stopped, exhaled through his nose. Intel is going insane. They want a full debrief. Command wants answers, and everyone wants to know how the hell you pulled that off. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Sergeant. He leaned forward. You could have hid, waited for extraction, stayed alive. And let them hunt my team like animals? Lena's voice was flat, cold. No. Pardee studied her for a long moment. The others said you ordered them to leave you behind. I did. That's not how we operate. It is when someone has to make the hard call. Lena shifted, wincing as pain lanced through her leg. They were faster without me. Better chance of survival. Simple math. Math, Pardee repeated. You turned yourself into bait and then went on a one-woman rampage because of math. I went on a one-woman rampage because they wrote us off. Lena's voice was quiet but sharp as a blade. You want to debrief me? Fine, but don't pretend this was just tactics. Someone decided we were acceptable losses. I made them reconsider. Pardee's expression shifted, something between respect and concern. Rourke, I need you to understand what's about to happen. You're going to be questioned, extensively. There are people who are going to want to turn you into a hero, and others who are going to want to court-martial you for disobeying orders and engaging without authorization. I didn't disobey orders. I had no orders. Comms were down. Convenient. It's the truth. Truth doesn't always matter. Pardee stood, adjusted his cap. Get some rest. You've got 48 hours before the circus starts. He walked toward the exit, then paused. For what it's worth? I'm glad you're alive. So am I. The debrief started on schedule, exactly 48 hours later. They moved her to a secured tent. No windows, 2 guards at the door, a table with 3 chairs and a recording device in the center. Lena sat on one side, legs still bandaged, but functional enough to walk with a cane. Across from her sat 2 officers she didn't recognize, a colonel with salt and pepper hair and a major who looked like he'd never smiled in his life. The colonel introduced himself as Vickers. The major was Osterman. Neither offered to shake hands. Staff Sergeant Rourke, Vickers began, voice flat and bureaucratic. This is a formal inquiry into the events of February 24th. Everything you say is being recorded. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Good. Let's start at the beginning. Walk me through the insertion. Lena did. She kept it clinical, times, coordinates, weather conditions, enemy contact. She described the ambush, the casualties, the jammed comms, the decision to split up. She left nothing out. Vickers listened without interrupting. Osterman took notes, his pen scratching across paper like an accusation. When she finished, Vickers leaned back. And then you proceeded alone to the enemy outpost. Correct. Despite being wounded. Correct. Despite having no support, no backup, no means of communication. Correct. Osterman looked up from his notes. Why? Lena met his eyes. Because they were hunting my team. Your team had already exfiltrated. I didn't know that at the time. So you acted on assumption. I acted on probability. They'd seen us. They knew we were out there. Splitting up gave the others a chance, but only if I kept the enemy occupied. Vickers tapped a finger on the table. Occupied. You destroyed 4 guard towers, eliminated 14 enemy combatants, and leveled half their infrastructure. That's not occupied, Sergeant. That's an assault. It was survival. Was it? Osterman's voice was sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you went rogue. You engaged an enemy position without authorization, without coordination, and without regard for the larger strategic picture. Lena's jaw tightened. The larger strategic picture wrote me off as dead. That's not... It is. She leaned forward, ignoring the protest from her leg. You declared us KIA. You pulled the extraction bird. You left us out there. So don't sit here and lecture me about authorization when your chain of command decided we weren't worth the risk. Silence. Vickers cleared his throat. Sergeant, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset, sir. I'm stating facts. The facts, Osterman said coldly, are that you disobeyed standing orders to avoid enemy contact. I had no orders. Comms were jammed. You had your mission brief. Observe and report, not engage. Hard to report when you're dead. Osterman's face flushed. Watch your tone, Sergeant. Or what? Lena's voice was ice. You'll court-martial me? Go ahead, charge me. But make sure the record reflects that I survived because I refused to roll over and die on command. Vickers raised a hand. Let's take a breath. Everyone. The room settled into uneasy quiet. Vickers pulled out a folder, opened it. I'm going to be frank with you, Rourke. There are people in this building who want to pin a medal on you. And there are others who want to bury you. My job is to figure out which side has the better case. And I need to know if you're a liability or an asset. He met her eyes. So I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you regret what you did out there? Lena didn't hesitate. No, sir. Not even a little? No, sir. Vickers nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He closed the folder. You're dismissed, for now. She found Holt, Tanaka, and Ruiz in the mess tent, huddled around mugs of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. They looked up when she limped in, faces guarded. Ruiz was the first to speak. How bad? Could be worse? Lena eased herself onto the bench beside him. They're deciding if I'm a hero or a war criminal. Holt grunted. Sounds about right. Tanaka pushed a mug toward her. You look like hell. Feel worse. Lena took a sip. Bitter. Lukewarm. Perfect. How about you guys? They grill you yet? Twice, Tanaka said. They wanted to know why we left you behind. What did you tell them? The truth. That you ordered us to. Lena nodded. Good. Is it? Ruiz's voice was tight. Because I feel like we abandoned you. You followed orders. Bullshit orders. Orders that kept you alive. Lena set the mug down. You did the right thing. Ruiz looked away. Tanaka studied her coffee. Holt just stared at Lena, expression unreadable. You shouldn't have done it, he said finally. Gone after them alone. Probably not. Then why did you? Lena was quiet for a moment. Because someone had to. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Holt shook his head. You're going to get yourself killed one of these days. Maybe, but not today. Well, 2 days later, the verdict came down. Lena was in physical therapy, relearning how to walk without the cane, pushing through exercises that made her legs scream when Pardee found her. Rourke, my office, now! She followed him across the FOB, her gait still uneven but improving. He didn't speak until they were inside, door closed, blinds drawn. You're not getting court-martialed, he said without preamble. Lena exhaled. Okay. But you're not getting a medal either. Command decided this whole thing is too politically messy, so they're splitting the difference. Meaning you're being reassigned, pulled from active combat rotation, sent stateside for recovery and evaluation. He made air quotes with his fingers. Basically, they're benching you. For how long? Indefinitely. Lena's hands curled into fists. They're sidelining me. They're protecting themselves, and you, whether you see it that way or not. Pardee sat on the edge of his desk. Rourke, you embarrassed a lot of people. You survived something you weren't supposed to survive, and you did it in a way that makes the brass look incompetent. They can't punish you without looking vindictive, and they can't promote you without admitting they screwed up. So they're doing what bureaucrats do best. They're making you disappear. I don't want to disappear. I know, but you don't get a vote. He pulled an envelope from his desk, handed it to her. Your orders. You ship out in 72 hours. Lena stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. Where? Fort Bragg. Instructor duty. You'll be training new operators. I don't want to be an instructor. And I don't want to lose one of my best sergeants, but here we are. Party's voice softened. Look, I get it. This feels like a punishment, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a chance to step back, reassess, figure out what you want your career to look like. I know what I want. I want to be back in the field. Doing what? Getting shot? Going lone wolf on enemy installations? He shook his head. You're good, Rourke, maybe too good, and that scares people. So they bury me. They preserve you. There's a difference. He stood. Take the assignment. Do your time. And when the heat dies down, we'll talk about getting you back out there. Lena met his eyes. And if I refuse? Then you'll be facing that court-martial after all. And trust me, you won't win. His expression hardened. Don't throw your career away over pride. She looked down at the envelope in her hands. 72 hours. Yes, sir, she said quietly. Psst. That night, Lena sat alone in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Her leg ached. Her head ached. Everything ached. The door opened. Tanaka stepped in, holding 2 bottles of something that definitely wasn't regulation. Heard you're leaving, she said. News travels fast. Always does. Tanaka sat on the opposite bunk, handed Lena one of the bottles. Figured you could use this. Lena took it. Whiskey. Expensive, judging by the label. Thought you said you'd buy me a drink. I did. This counts. Tanaka twisted the cap off her own bottle. To surviving. To surviving, Lena echoed. They drank in silence for a while. You know what the worst part is? Tanaka said finally. They're acting like you did something wrong, like you should have just laid down and died. Maybe I should have. Bullshit. I'm serious. If I'd stayed put, played dead, waited for rescue, you'd be frozen solid right now, and so would we. Tanaka's voice was fierce. You saved our asses, Lena. Don't let them make you forget that. I'm not forgetting. I'm just... Lena trailed off, searching for the words. I'm tired. Yeah, me too. They sat there, 2 soldiers in a tent on the edge of nowhere, drinking stolen whiskey and not talking about the things that mattered. Eventually, Tanaka stood. For what it's worth. I hope they bring you back. The field needs more people like you. People who can't follow orders. People who don't quit. Tanaka headed for the door, paused. Enjoy stateside. Try not to drive the trainees insane. No promises. The door closed. Lena was alone again. She looked at the bottle in her hand, then at the envelope on her bunk. 72 hours. She took another drink and let the burn settle in her chest. Fort Bragg was a different world. No snow, no enemies, no midnight ambushes. Just endless rows of identical buildings, manicured lawns, and a schedule that ran like clockwork. Lena reported for duty on a Monday morning, legs still stiff but functional, and was immediately shuffled into an office that smelled like old coffee and bureaucracy. Her new commanding officer was a lieutenant colonel named Brennan, late 40s, barrel-chested, with the kind of mustache that belonged on a recruiting poster. He looked her up and down like she was a puzzle he didn't particularly want to solve. Staff Sergeant Rourke, I've read your file. Sir? Quite the resume. Recon specialist, combat commendations, and a recent incident in the Kharkova Ridge. Lena kept her expression neutral. Yes, sir. Incident, Brennan repeated, as if tasting the word. That's what they're calling it, an incident. He leaned back in his chair. You destroyed an enemy outpost single-handedly after being declared KYA. Most people would call that remarkable. Command calls it an incident. I was just trying to survive, sir. Were you? His eyes were sharp. Because the after-action report reads more like an offensive operation than a survival scenario. Lena didn't respond. Brennan sighed. Look, Rourke, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't know what you did to end up here, and frankly, I don't care. What I care about is whether you can do the job I'm assigning you. Can you train soldiers without turning them into reckless cowboys? Yes, sir. Can you follow a curriculum without improvising? Yes, sir. Can you keep your head down and not make my life difficult? Lena hesitated. Brennan noticed. That's what I thought. He pushed a folder across the desk. You'll be running advanced tactics for the Q course candidates. Small unit operations, survival training, enemy contact protocols. You teach them what's in the manual, nothing more. Clear? Clear, sir? Good. Dismissed. Lena took the folder and left. But the first class was a disaster. 18 candidates, fresh-faced and eager, sitting in a classroom that felt more like a cage. Lena stood at the front, leg throbbing, and tried to remember how to teach people who'd never been shot at. Small unit tactics, she began. The fundamentals are simple. Move, communicate, shoot. Everything else is just variations on that theme. A hand went up. Kid in the front row, couldn't have been more than 22. Yes? Sergeant, is it true you single-handedly took down an enemy base? The room went silent. Lena kept her voice flat. Where'd you hear that? It's all over the barracks. They're saying you're the one from the Kharkova thing. The Kharkova thing is classified. But did you? Lena stared at him. What's your name, candidate? Morrison, Sergeant. Morrison, do you know what the difference is between tactics and heroics? No, Sergeant. Tactics keep you alive. Heroics get you killed. Or worse, they get your team killed. She let that hang in the air. I'm here to teach you tactics, not war stories. Clear? Clear, Sergeant. Good. Now open your manuals to Chapter 3. But she could see it in their eyes. They didn't want tactics. They wanted legends. They wanted her to be something she wasn't. And Lena realized with cold certainty that this was going to be harder than surviving the ridge. Weeks blurred together. Lena taught. She drilled. She corrected form and posture and 1,000 small mistakes that would get someone killed in the real world. She followed the manual, stuck to the curriculum, and kept her head down. But the whispers followed her. In the mess hall. In the barracks. In the hallways between classes. They called her Whiteout, even though she'd never used that call sign stateside. They asked questions she wouldn't answer. They looked at her like she was a ghost, or a myth, or something in between. And the worst part? Some of them looked at her like she was broken. She saw it in the way her fellow instructors kept their distance, the way Brennan assigned her the least critical classes, the way the psych eval officer kept checking in with thinly veiled concern. They didn't trust her, not because she'd failed, because she'd succeeded in a way that made them uncomfortable. It came to a head 6 weeks in. Lena was running a field exercise, basic patrol formation, enemy contact drill, nothing complicated. The candidates were moving through the woods, maintaining spacing, communicating properly. Everything by the book. Then Morrison screwed up. He broke formation, moved too fast, got separated from his fire team. Lena called a halt, pulled him aside. What the hell was that? I was trying to flank, Sergeant. I didn't tell you to flank. I told you to hold formation. But in a real situation, you just got yourself and 2 other people killed. Lena's voice was cold. You don't improvise. Not yet. You learn the fundamentals first, and then, maybe, you earn the right to think for yourself. Morrison's jaw tightened. With all due respect, Sergeant, didn't you improvise in the Kharkova Ridge? The woods went silent. Lena stepped closer, close enough that Morrison had to look up to meet her eyes. You want to know what I did in the Kharkova Ridge? Yes, Sergeant. I got shot. I got left behind. I crawled through a blizzard with a bullet in my leg, and I did things I'm not proud of because the alternative was dying alone in the snow. Her voice was quiet, lethal. So no, Morrison, I didn't improvise. I didn't go rogue. I survived. And if you ever find yourself in that situation, you'll understand the difference. She turned away. Exercise over. Back to base. That night, Brennan called her into his office. I heard about the incident with Morrison. Lena stood at attention. It was a learning moment, sir. It was you tearing into a candidate in front of his peers. He endangered his team. He made a mistake. That's what training is for. Brennan rubbed his temples. Rourke, I'm trying to work with you here, but you're making it difficult. I'm doing my job, sir. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're using these kids as punching bags for whatever you're working through. Lena's hands curled into fists behind her back. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. You asked me to teach tactics. That's what I'm doing. If the candidates can't handle criticism, this isn't about criticism. It's about anger. Brennan leaned forward. You're angry. At command, at the system, at yourself. I get it. But you can't take that out on people who are just trying to learn. I'm not. Yes, you are. His voice softened. Look, I don't know what happened out there. Not really. But I know what it does to people. And I know that teaching isn't the same as fighting. You need to figure out which one you're doing. Lena didn't respond. Take the weekend, Brennan said. Clear your head. And when you come back, decide if you actually want to be here. Yes, sir. She left before he could say anything else. Lena spent the weekend alone in her quarters, staring at the walls and wondering what the hell she was doing. She'd survived the impossible. She'd proven herself. And somehow that had landed her here, teaching people who'd never understand, following rules that felt like chains, pretending to be something she wasn't. She thought about Morrison's question. Didn't you improvise? The truth was more complicated. She'd improvised because she had no choice, because the system had failed her, and she'd refused to fail with it, because survival wasn't in the manual. But how do you teach that? How do you tell someone that the rules matter right up until they don't? That discipline will save your life 99 times out of 100, but that 100th time you'll have to break every rule you've ever learned just to see tomorrow? You can't. So you teach the fundamentals. You drill them until they're automatic. And you hope, pray even, that when the moment comes, they'll know which rules to break. Lena stood, grabbed her jacket, and headed for the door. She had an idea. Monday morning, she walked into Brennan's office without knocking. I want to change the curriculum. Brennan looked up from his paperwork. Excuse me? The Advanced Tactics course. I want to add a module. Unscripted scenarios. No manual, no safety net. Just candidates and problems they have to solve in real time. That's not how I know, but it should be. Lena leaned on his desk. Sir, we're teaching these people to fight by the numbers, but the enemy doesn't fight by the numbers. And when comms go down, when everything goes sideways, they need to know how to think. What you're describing sounds like chaos. It's controlled chaos. I'll design the scenarios, supervise every exercise, debrief afterward, but they need to experience failure in a safe environment before they experience it in the field. Brennan studied her. This about Morrison? This is about everyone, including me. Lena straightened. You were right. I was angry, but I'm not anymore. I just want to make sure the next person who gets left behind knows how to make it home. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Brennan sighed. You get one trial run, one scenario. If it works, we'll talk about adding it to the curriculum. If it doesn't, you go back to teaching by the book. Deal? Deal. Bisset. She designed the scenario carefully. 4-person team. Simulated enemy contact, jammed comms. One member wounded and unable to move quickly. Objective, extract safely within 30 minutes. She ran it on a Friday, with Morrison's fire team as the test group. They failed spectacularly. Broke formation, argued, left the wounded member behind. Got killed by the OPFOR instructors playing enemy combatants. Lena called them together for debrief in the field, still sweating, still frustrated. What happened? She asked. Morrison spoke first. We got overwhelmed. Why? Because we couldn't communicate. The radios were down. So you gave up? No, He stopped, realizing the trap. You left your wounded behind, Lena said quietly. Why? Silence. Because he was slowing us down, one of the others admitted, and you thought your best chance of survival was to move fast. Yes, Sergeant, Lena nodded. That's not wrong. It's actually tactically sound. Sometimes you have to make that call. She paused. But you didn't make a call. You panicked. There's a difference. She spent the next hour walking them through alternatives. How to improvise communication without radios. How to move a wounded teammate efficiently. How to assess risk versus reward in real time. The manual gives you tools, she said. But you have to know when to use them and when to throw them out. That's not something I can teach. That's something you learn by failing. Morrison raised his hand. So, we're supposed to fail? You're supposed to learn. Lena met his eyes. Because out there, you don't get a second chance. Word spread fast. By the following week, candidates from other classes were asking to run Lena's scenarios. Brennan approved 3 more trial runs, then 6, then made it a permanent part of the curriculum. Lena found herself working longer hours, designing harder problems, pushing candidates to their limits in ways the manual never could. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, the anger started to fade. She was still stuck stateside, still benched, still written off by the people who should have known better. But she was teaching people how to survive. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Chiamt. 3 months into her assignment, Lena got a visitor. She was in her office reviewing after-action reports when someone knocked. She looked up. Lieutenant Pardee stood in the doorway, smile crooked. Heard you were turning Fort Bragg upside down. Lena stood, surprised. Sir, what are you doing here? Official business. He stepped inside, closed the door. Also wanted to see how you were holding up. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. Lena gestured to the chair. Pardee sat. I heard about your scenarios, he said. Command's talking about rolling them out system-wide. You've got people's attention. Is that good or bad? Depends on the people. Pardee leaned back. Some of them think you're innovating. Others think you're undermining the training program. And you? I think you're doing what you've always done, finding a way to win. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Which brings me to the real reason I'm here. Lena's pulse quickened. What is that? Orders. Effective immediately. You're being reassigned. Her heart sank. Where? Back to active duty. Recon team leader, Central Command Theater. Lena stared at him. You're serious? As a heart attack. Pardee smiled. Turns out your training program works. We've had 3 separate teams credit your scenarios with saving their asses in the field. Command noticed, and they've decided you're more valuable out there than in here. When do I leave? 2 weeks. Lena took the envelope with shaking hands. 2 weeks. There's a catch, Pardee said. There's always a catch. You're not going back to your old unit. They're assigning you to a new team, fresh recruits, straight out of selection. Your job is to turn them into operators. In the field? In the field. Pardee stood. Think you can handle it? Lena looked at the orders in her hands, then back at him. Yeah, she said. I can handle it. Her last day at Fort Bragg, Morrison found her in the parking lot, duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Heard you're shipping out, Sergeant. That's right. Back to the fight? Something like that. He shifted his weight, awkward. I just wanted to say, thanks for not giving up on us. Lena almost smiled. You made it easy. Doubt that. He held out his hand. Good luck out there. She shook it. You too, Morrison. Don't get yourself killed. I'll try, Sergeant. She watched him walk away, then climbed into her car and drove toward the gate. In 2 weeks, she'd be back in the field, back where she belonged. But something had changed. She wasn't angry anymore, wasn't trying to prove anything. She was just ready. Ready for whatever came next, and when the storm came, because it always did, she'd be the one standing in the center of it, teaching others how to survive. The gate guard waved her through. Lena drove into the afternoon sun and didn't look back. The flight to the Central Command Theater took 14 hours, 2 layovers, and a C-130 that smelled like hydraulic fluid and regret. Lena spent most of it reading personnel files. Her new team, call sign Phantom 4, consisted of 4 operators fresh out of selection, each one handpicked by someone who thought they had potential. On paper, they looked good. In reality, Lena knew better than to trust paper. Specialist Adrian Cross, 24, former Army Ranger, top marks in marksmanship and close quarters combat. Cocky, according to his instructors. Talented but unproven. Corporal Maya Reeves, 26, combat medic with a secondary specialty in communications. Steady under pressure. Struggled with leadership evaluations. Kept to herself. Sergeant Joel Vargas, 31, oldest of the group, former infantry with 2 deployments under his belt. Solid, dependable, but never stood out. The kind of guy who did his job and went home. Private first class. Nathan Kim, 22, tech specialist, fluent in 4 languages, recruited straight out of intelligence analysis. No combat experience. None. Lena closed the folder and stared out the window at nothing. This was her team. Green as spring grass, sharp as broken glass, and about to walk into a theater where mistakes got you killed in ways the training manual didn't cover. She was supposed to turn them into operators. The plane hit turbulence. Lena didn't flinch. FOB Sentinel sat in the Kandahar province, a sprawling collection of blast walls, prefab buildings, and dust that got into everything. The base hummed with activity, convoys rolling out, helicopters landing, soldiers moving with the kind of purposeful exhaustion that came from months in the sandbox. Lena reported to the operations center within an hour of landing, legs still stiff from the flight but functional. The OIC, officer in charge, was a major named Keller, mid-40s, with the look of someone who'd seen too many plans fall apart. Staff Sergeant Rourke, welcome to Sentinel. He didn't offer to shake hands. I assume you've read the brief? Yes, sir. Then you know we're undermanned, overextended, and dealing with an enemy that doesn't play by the rules. Keller pulled up a map on the display screen. Your AO, Area of Operations, covers 60 square clicks of mountainous terrain. Taliban presence is confirmed. Weapons caches, supply routes, possibly a command structure. Your job is to find them, fix them, and call in assets to finish them. Understood, sir. Your team is waiting in the ready room. They've been briefed on the mission parameters, but they don't know you yet. That's your first challenge. Keller met her eyes. I've heard the stories, Rourke, Kharkova Ridge, the training program at Bragg. You've got a reputation, but out here, reputations don't mean shit. Results do. Clear? Clear, sir? Good. You deploy at 0600 tomorrow. Use the time wisely. It's it. The ready room was a converted storage container with folding chairs, a whiteboard, and fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. 4 people looked up when Lena walked in. Cross was the first to react, straightening in his chair, eyes sharp and assessing. Reeves glanced up briefly, then went back to checking her medical kit. Vargas stood and nodded, respectful but reserved. Kim looked nervous, fingers drumming on his knee. Lena set her pack down and faced them. I'm Staff Sergeant Rourke. As of now, I'm your team leader. We deploy in 14 hours, so let's skip the pleasantries and get to work. She walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker. First question. Who here has combat experience? Cross raised his hand. Vargas raised his. Reeves hesitated, then raised hers. Kim kept his hands in his lap. Okay. Second question. Who here has experience operating without direct support? No hands. Lena nodded. That's what I thought. So here's the reality. We're going into hostile territory with minimal backup. If things go wrong, we're on our own. That means every decision matters, every mistake costs. And if you freeze up or panic or do something stupid, people die. Understood? Yes, Sergeant, they said in unison, except Kim, who just nodded. Good. Now, let's talk about the mission. She spent the next 2 hours walking them through the operational plan. Insertion point, patrol routes, rally points, extraction coordinates. She drilled them on communication protocols, hand signals, contingency plans. She made them recite their sectors of fire until they could do it in their sleep. Cross asked smart questions. Vargas took notes. Reeves listened intently. Kim looked like he might throw up. When they finished, Lena put down the marker. One more thing. I know some of you have heard stories about me, about what happened in the Kharkova Ridge. The room went quiet. I'm going to tell you right now, forget them. That was a different time, different mission, different circumstances. Out here, we operate as a team. No heroes. No lone wolves. We move together, we fight together, and we come home together. That's the only story that matters. Clear? Clear, Sergeant, Cross said. Clear, the others echoed. Good. Get some rest. We step off at 0600. They didn't get rest. At 0400, the base alarm screamed to life, high-pitched wail that cut through the pre-dawn darkness like a knife. Lena was already awake, had been for an hour, couldn't sleep before missions anymore. She grabbed her rifle and ran. The operations center was chaos, officers shouting, screens flashing, radio traffic overlapping into white noise. Keller was in the center of it, face grim. What happened? Lena demanded. Patrol got hit. Route Amber, 5 clicks north. IED followed by small arms fire. 3 wounded, 1 critical. QRF is spinning up, but they're 15 minutes out. My team is deploying now. You wanted combat experience? Congratulations. He pointed at the map. Get up there, secure the site, and medevac the wounded. QRF will link up and take over. Lena didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. She sprinted to the ready room. Her team was already gearing up, cross-checking his rifle, Reeves organizing medical supplies, Vargas loading magazines with practiced efficiency. Kim looked pale but focused. Listen up. Lena's voice cut through the noise. Patrol got ambushed on Route Amber. We're responding. Wounded on site, possible hostiles in the area. This is not a drill. Cross, you're on point. Vargas, rear security. Reeves, you're with me. Medical is priority. Kim, stay on comms. We move fast, we stay tight, and we do not leave anyone behind. Questions? None. Let's go. They loaded into an MRAP, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, a massive armored beast that rumbled like an angry tank. The driver was a kid who couldn't have been more than 20, knuckles white on the wheel. Route Amber, as fast as you can, Lena ordered. Yes, Sergeant. The MRAP lurched forward, grinding through the gates and onto the dirt road that stretched into the darkness. Lena checked her rifle for the 3rd time, loaded, safety off, ready. Around her, her team did the same. Sergeant? Kim's voice was tight. What if they're still there? The hostiles? Then we deal with them. How? Lena met his eyes. Fast and violent, that's how. The MRAP hit a pothole, rattling everyone inside. Cross grinned, nervous energy, adrenaline. Reeves kept her expression neutral. Vargas just stared out the window, scanning for threats. 2 minutes out, the driver called. Lena keyed her radio. Phantom 4 to Sentinel, approaching Route Amber. Status on QRF. QRF is 10 minutes behind you. Proceed with caution. Copy. The MRAP slowed, headlights cutting through the dust. Ahead, Lena could see shapes, vehicles, bodies, the aftermath of violence. The patrol had been moving in a 3-vehicle convoy. The lead truck was a smoking ruin, front end obliterated by the IED. The other 2 had pulled defensive positions, soldiers crouched behind cover, weapons aimed into the darkness. Hold here, Lena told the driver. Keep the engine running. She turned to her team. Cross Vargas, establish a perimeter. Reeves, with me. Kim, get on the net and coordinate with the patrol. I need a sitrep and casualty count. They moved. Lena and Reeves sprinted to the lead vehicle, boots pounding dirt. A sergeant met them, face covered in dust and blood, eyes wide but focused. Who the hell are you? Phantom 4, we're here for your wounded. About damn time. He pointed to the wreckage. 3 casualties. 2 walking wounded, 1 critical. Jensen took shrapnel to the chest. He's not good. Reeves was already moving, medical kit in hand. She dropped beside a soldier lying on the ground, young, maybe 19, pale as death. His chest was a mess of blood and torn fabric. Jensen, I'm Corporal Reeves. I'm going to help you. Stay with me. She worked fast, cutting away the uniform, packing the wound, starting an IV. Her hands were steady, movements precise. Lena stood guard, rifle up, scanning the darkness. How bad? Lena asked quietly. Bad. He needs a surgeon, not me. Reeves didn't look up. I can stabilize him, but we need to move, now. Kim, Lena shouted. Where's my medevac? Inbound, 3 minutes. Kim's voice crackled over the radio. 3 minutes. Jensen didn't have 3 minutes. Cross, Vargas, help me get him loaded. They moved together, lifting Jensen as gently as they could. Every jostle made him gasp, blood seeping through the bandages. Reeves kept pressure on the wound, moving with them, refusing to let go. They loaded him into the MRAP. The other 2 wounded followed, less critical, able to walk. Reeves stayed with Jensen, working frantically. And then the gunfire started. Muzzle flashes strobed from the ridgeline to the east. 3, maybe 4 shooters, AK-47s by the sound. Bullets cracked overhead, punched into the dirt, sparked off the MRAP's armor. "Contact east!" Cross yelled, already returning fire. Lena dropped into cover behind the MRAP, brought her rifle up, and started shooting. Controlled bursts aiming at the flashes. Vargas was beside her, his M4 barking rhythmically. "Kim, call it in. We need air support." "On it." More gunfire. Closer this time. The enemy was moving, trying to flank. "Reeves, how's Jensen?" "Still alive, barely." "Cross, shift fire left. They're trying to get around us." Cross pivoted, poured rounds into the darkness. One of the muzzle flashes went dark. The helicopter appeared like salvation. A Black Hawk, rotors screaming, spotlight cutting through the night. The door gunner opened up with a minigun, tracers arcing into the ridgeline. The enemy fire faltered, then stopped. "Medevac's here," Kim shouted. The Black Hawk touched down 30 meters away, rotors kicking up a sandstorm. Lena and Vargas grabbed Jensen's litter, ran through the chaos, loaded him onto the bird. Reeves climbed in after him, refusing to let go. "Go!" Lena pounded the side of the helo. "Go!" The Black Hawk lifted, banking hard, disappearing into the night. Lena turned back to her team. "Everyone still breathing?" "Yeah," Cross panted. "Good. QRF's here. Let's link up and secure this site." They worked through the dawn, clearing the area, documenting the IED site, recovering equipment. The QRF commander, a captain named Torres, took over the scene. Lena gave him a quick debrief, then gathered her team. They looked exhausted, covered in dust and blood that wasn't theirs, but alive. "You did good," Lena said quietly. "All of you." Kim let out a shaky breath. "Is this what it's always like?" "Sometimes worse." "Jesus. Get used to it. We deploy on the original mission in 6 hours." Cross looked up sharply. "We're still going? Unless you've got a better idea." "I just thought, after this, we do our job." Lena's voice was firm. "Jensen's alive because we moved fast and stayed calm. That's what operators do. You want to quit? There's the door. Otherwise, gear up and get ready." No one moved toward the door. "Good. See you at 1200. They inserted via helicopter at 12:15, fast roping into a valley ringed by jagged peaks. The moment Lena's boots hit the ground, the bird was gone, rotors fading into the distance, leaving them alone with the wind and the silence. "Phantom 4's boots down," she radioed. "Moving to Objective Alpha. Copy, Phantom 4. Good hunting." They moved in diamond formation, Cross on point, Vargas rear, Reeves and Kim in the middle with Lena. The terrain was brutal, loose scree, steep inclines, thin air that burned the lungs. They climbed for 2 hours, staying low, moving slow, eyes scanning for threats. At 1400, Cross raised a fist. Everyone froze. Lena moved up beside him. He pointed down into the next valley, a cluster of mud brick buildings, maybe 8 or 9, arranged in a loose compound. No lights, no movement, but fresh tire tracks in the dirt. "That's it," Lena whispered. "Objective Alpha." She pulled out her binoculars, glassed the compound. No guards visible, no lookouts, too quiet. "Could be abandoned," Vargas murmured. "Could be a trap," Lena countered. "What do we do?" Kim asked. Lena lowered the binoculars. "We recon. Carefully. Cross, take us down the west approach. Stay in cover. Kim, get eyes in the sky. I want drone coverage." "On it." They descended into the valley, moving from boulder to boulder, using every scrap of cover. Kim launched the microdrone, a quadcopter the size of a dinner plate, nearly silent. It climbed, circled, sent back thermal imaging. I've got heat signatures, Kim said quietly. 3 buildings, maybe 10 to 15 people total. Armed? Can't tell from thermal, but they're not moving much. Could be sleeping. Lena checked her watch. 1,430. Middle of the afternoon. Taliban fighters often rested during the heat of the day. All right, we set up an OP, observation post, on the high ground. Document everything. If this is a weapons cache or command node, we call in air and let them handle it. And if they spot us, Cross asked, then we fight our way out. But they established the OP in a cluster of rocks overlooking the compound, 300 meters out, close enough to observe, far enough to avoid detection. Lena and Cross took first watch, glassing the buildings while Reeves and Vargas rested. Kim monitored the drone feed. An hour passed, then 2. The compound came to life slowly, men emerging from buildings, stretching, talking. A K-47 slung over shoulders, ammunition crates stacked against walls, definitely not civilians. Count? Lena asked. 14, Cross said. All military-age males, all armed. Weapons? AKs, RPGs, maybe a heavy machine gun in that center building. Lena keyed her radio. Phantom 4 to Sentinel. Eyes on Objective Alpha. Confirm 14 enemy combatants, multiple weapons, possible cache site. Requesting airstrike authorization. Stand by, Phantom 4. They waited. The sun crawled across the sky. The heat pressed down like a physical weight. Lena sipped water sparingly, knowing they had to make it last. Phantom 4 Sentinel. Airstrike is a no-go. Risk of civilian collateral too high. You are authorized to call for fire support if directly engaged, but priority is intelligence gathering. Continue observation. Lena closed her eyes briefly. Of course. Copy, Sentinel. What now? Cross asked. We watch, we document, and we hope they don't. A shout echoed from the compound. Lena's blood went cold. She brought up her binoculars, saw a man pointing, not at them, but at the ridge behind them. Someone else had spotted the drone. Kim, bring it back. Now. On it. Wait, they're shooting at it. Gunfire crackled. The drone jerked, sparking, spiraling. I lost control. It's going down. The drone crashed into the dirt 50 meters from the compound. Close enough that they'd find it. Close enough to know they were being watched. Shit, Vargas breathed. The compound erupted. Men grabbing weapons, running for cover, shouting orders. They knew. Fall back, Lena ordered. Controlled retreat. Move. They moved. But the enemy was faster. The first shots came from the ridge to their north, a flanking team, moving fast, trying to cut them off. Bullets snapped through the air, kicked up dust. Contact north! Vargas returned fire, his M4 roaring. Keep moving, Lena shouted. Don't let them pin us. They ran, not blind, not panicked, but fast and controlled. Lena covered their retreat, firing short bursts to keep the enemy's heads down. Cross and Vargas leapfrogged, one moving while the other shot. More gunfire from the east. Another team closing in. They were being surrounded. Kim, get on the net. We need fire support. Trying. The terrain's blocking the signal. Try harder. They hit a depression in the ground. Shallow, barely cover, but better than nothing. Lena slid into it, motioning for the others to join. How many? She asked Vargas. 20, maybe more. They're organized. This isn't random. Lena's mind raced. 20 hostiles, 4 operators, limited ammunition, no air support. The math was bad. Reeves, how's our medical? Fully stocked. Nobody's hit yet. Yet, Cross muttered. Lena ignored him. Kim, status on comms? Still trying. I think if I can get higher. An RPG streaked overhead, exploding 30 meters away. The shockwave rattled teeth. We don't have time for higher, Lena snapped. Give me something. Kim's hands shook on the radio. I'm trying, Sergeant. Lena grabbed his shoulder, forced him to look at her. Nathan, breathe. You've done this 100 times in training. This is the same. Focus. He nodded, swallowed hard. Okay. He adjusted the antenna, cycled frequencies. Phantom 4 to Sentinel, how copy? Static. Phantom 4 to any station, how copy? More static, then faint.
Tom, copy. Weak. They're hearing us, Kim's voice cracked with relief. Tell them we need immediate fire support. Danger close. Kim relayed the message. Waited. They're saying, 10 minutes for artillery, 15 for air. 10 minutes. They'd be dead in 5. Lena looked at her team, exhausted, scared, but holding together. She looked at the enemy closing in from 3 sides. She looked at the terrain, the angles, the options, and she made a decision. Here's what we're going to do, she said, voice calm and cold. We're not running anymore. Cross stared at her. What? We're outnumbered and outgunned. If we keep retreating, they'll run us down, so we stop retreating. You want to fight them? Vargas sounded incredulous. I want to survive them, and the only way we do that is by doing something they don't expect. Lena pointed to the compound. We're going in. Silence. You're insane, Cross said. I'm practical. They think we're running. They think they've got us pinned, so we do the opposite. We hit them where they're not looking. There are 20 of them. Not for long. Lena's eyes were hard. Reeves, how many frags do we have? 6. Good. Kim, do you still have control of the drone wreckage? It's destroyed, but the battery might still be active. Why? Can you make it spark? Create a distraction? Kim blinked. Maybe, if I trigger the self-destruct remotely. Do it. When it goes off, that's our signal. We move fast, hit the compound from the west, use their own cover against them. We take the center building, the one with the heavy weapons, hold it until fire support arrives. And if we can't hold it? Vargas asked. Lena met his eyes. Then we make them regret taking it back. She could see them processing it, the insanity of the plan, the slim odds, the sheer audacity. But she could also see something else, belief. Because she wasn't asking them to follow her into the unknown. She was telling them, with absolute certainty, that they would survive. All right, Cross said finally. Let's do it. Vargas nodded. Reeves checked her rifle. Kim's hands stopped shaking. On my mark, Lena said. Kim, trigger it. Kim's fingers danced across his tablet. 3, 2, 1. The drone exploded. Not a big blast, but loud enough. The enemy fire shifted, focusing on the noise. Go! They ran, not away from the fight, into it. They hit the compound like a hammer. Cross went first, fast and low, rifle up. He took down the first hostile before the man even saw him. Double tap, center mass, target dropped. Vargas followed, clearing angles, moving like a machine. Lena and Reeves flanked right, grenades in hand. Lena threw hers through the window of the nearest building, counted 3 seconds, heard the blast, felt the concussion. Reeves threw hers into the next structure. Fire and chaos. The enemy scrambled, trying to regroup, but Phantom 4 was already inside their perimeter, using their own walls for cover. Lena moved through the compound like a ghost, shooting anything that moved, staying ahead of the confusion. Center building, she shouted. They converged on it, kicked the door in, cleared the rooms one by one. 2 hostiles inside, both cut down before they could raise their weapons. The heavy machine gun was mounted on a tripod by the window, belt-fed, ready. Vargas, get on that gun. He didn't hesitate. Swung the barrel around, opened fire. The PKM roared, spitting brass, tearing through the compound walls. Enemy fighters dove for cover, return fire scattered and ineffective. Kim, how long on fire support? 5 minutes. Lena grabbed her rifle, took position by the window. Outside, the enemy was regrouping, pulling back, setting up for an assault. They'd figured out what happened. Now they were going to try to take the building back. Here they come, Cross yelled. They came hard. 20 men, maybe more, pouring out of the other buildings, firing as they advanced. RPGs streaked through the air. The walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Vargas kept the machine gun hammering, mowing down anyone stupid enough to charge. Cross and Reeves fired methodically, conserving ammunition, making every shot count. Kim stayed on the radio coordinating with Sentinel, guiding the incoming fire support. And Lena stood in the center of it all, calm and cold, calling targets like she was conducting an orchestra. RPG team, second building, left side,
Vargas, light them up. The machine gun swiveled. The RPG team disintegrated. Cross, window at your 2 o'clock. Sniper. Cross fired once. The sniper fell. Reeves, conserve your ammo. We've got 3 minutes. Copy. The assault wave broke against them like water against stone. The enemy tried to flank, tried to overwhelm, tried everything, but Phantom 4 held. 1 minute, Kim shouted. Lena could hear it now, the distant scream of jets. She keyed her radio. All units, take cover. Fire mission inbound. They dropped flat. The bombs hit like the end of the world. The compound ceased to exist. Buildings collapsed. Fire bloomed. The earth shook so hard it felt like it might split open. Dust and smoke filled the air, thick enough to choke on. When it cleared, there was nothing left but rubble and silence. Lena pushed herself up, ears ringing, vision swimming. Around her, her team did the same, battered, bleeding from minor cuts, but alive. Sound off, she croaked. Cross, good. Vargas, good. Reeves, good. Kim, I'm good. Lena exhaled. Kim, call for extract. Already done. Helo's inbound, 2 minutes. She looked at her team, covered in dust and blood and the residue of violence. They looked back at her, eyes wide, breathing hard. What you just did, Lena said quietly, was survive the impossible. Remember that. The Black Hawk appeared over the ridge, rotors cutting through the smoke. They climbed aboard, collapsed into the troop seats, and let the bird carry them home. But back at FOB Sentinel, Major Keller met them on the tarmac. Rourke, my office. Now. Lena followed him, limping slightly, her old wound acting up again. He closed the door, turned to face her. Do you have any idea what you just did? My job, sir. Your job was observation. You engaged a superior force, assaulted an enemy compound, and called in an airstrike that leveled half the valley. And eliminated a Taliban command node. You're welcome. Keller stared at her. Then, impossibly, he smiled. You're either the best operator I've ever seen or the craziest. Maybe both. I prefer effective, sir. Effective. He shook his head. Intel's already crawling through the wreckage. Early reports say you took out a regional commander and a major weapons cache. That's a win. A big one. Then why do I feel like I'm about to get yelled at? Because you went off script. Again. Keller's expression sobered. But you also saved your team and completed the mission. So here's what's going to happen. I'm writing you up for a commendation, and I'm assigning you more missions, because apparently you're exactly the kind of crazy we need out here. Lena nodded slowly. Understood, sir. Dismissed. Ian. She found her team in the mess hall, eating in exhausted silence. She sat down beside them. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, Cross looked up. You knew, didn't you, that we could do it? I hoped. That's not the same thing. No, but it's enough. Lena met his eyes. You want certainty, join the clerk pool. Out here, hope and skill are all we've got. Vargas laughed, short, sharp, genuine. She's right. Kim just shook his head. I thought I was going to die. We all did, Reeves said quietly. But we didn't. Because of her, Cross added, nodding at Lena. Lena shook her head. Because of us. All of us. They sat there, 5 soldiers who'd walked into hell and walked back out, not unscathed, but unbroken. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Lena felt it, the thing she'd been searching for since the Kharkova Ridge. Not redemption, not validation, just the quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The storm had come, and they'd survived it together. The commendation never came. Instead, 3 days after the compound assault, Lena was summoned to a conference room she'd never seen before. Buried deep in the operations center, no windows, soundproofed walls, and a table long enough to seat 12 people. Only 3 were waiting when she arrived. Major Keller sat at one end, expression carefully neutral. Beside him was a woman Lena didn't recognize, late 30s, civilian clothes, ID badge clipped to her belt that read DOD-CI, Defense Department, Counterintelligence. And at the far end of the table sat a colonel with silver hair and eyes like ice chips. Colonel Brennan, from Fort Bragg. Lena's stomach dropped. Staff Sergeant Rourke, Brennan said without preamble. Sit. She sat. Brennan slid a folder across the table. Do you know what this is? Lena opened it. Inside were after-action reports, classified intelligence assessments, satellite imagery of the compound. And underneath it all, a series of photographs. Some she recognized, some she didn't. All of them tagged with red stamps, priority review. I know what it looks like, Lena said carefully. It looks like you've been running unauthorized operations under the guise of standard recon missions. The woman from counterintelligence leaned forward. I'm Agent Carver, and I'm here because your pattern of behavior has triggered several flags in our system. Flags, Lena repeated. Karkova Ridge, the training incidents at Bragg. Now this. Carver tapped the folder. 3 separate occasions where you've deviated from mission parameters, engaged enemy forces without authorization, and achieved results that, frankly, shouldn't be possible for someone operating alone or with minimal support. I had a team, a green team, 4 operators with less than 6 months combined field experience. Carver's eyes were sharp. Yet you led them into a compound assault against a force 3 times your size and walked away with 0 casualties. That's not luck, Sergeant. That's something else. Lena kept her expression flat. It's called training. Is it? Brennan spoke up. Because I trained you, Rourke. I know what you're capable of. And this? He gestured at the folder. This is beyond what I taught you. The room fell silent. Keller shifted uncomfortably. With respect, sir, I don't see the problem. She completed the mission. Her team survived. The enemy didn't. That's a win by any metric. The problem, Carver said coldly, is that Sergeant Rourke has a history of operating outside the chain of command. And when people operate outside the chain of command, it raises questions about loyalty, about objectives, about who she's really working for. Lena's jaw tightened. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking you to explain yourself. I survived. I helped others survive. That's my explanation. Carver pulled out another document, older, yellowed at the edges. Let's talk about before you enlisted. Let's talk about Rebecca Rourke. Lena went very still. Your file says you grew up in rural Montana. Father was a hunting guide. Mother died when you were 12. You enlisted at 18, scored top marks in selection, fast-tracked through special operations training. Carver paused. But there's a 6-month gap in your timeline, between high school graduation and enlistment. What were you doing during that time? Working? Doing what? Ranch work. Odd jobs, saving money. Where? Lena met her eyes. I don't remember. It was over a decade ago. You don't remember 6 months of your life? I remember it wasn't interesting enough to put on a government form. Carver smiled, cold, mirthless. See, that's the problem, because we ran your name through some databases, cross-referenced with known aliases, shell companies, training facilities, and we found something interesting. She slid a photograph across the table. It showed a younger Lena, 18, maybe 19, standing in front of a nondescript building. Behind her, barely visible, was a sign, Black Ridge Tactical Solutions. Lena's blood turned to ice. Black Ridge, Carver said quietly, a private military contractor that operated in the late 2000s, specialized in training foreign operatives, gray zone operations, things that didn't officially exist, shut down in 2010 after allegations of illegal weapons sales and unauthorized combat deployments. She leaned forward. You were there. For 6 months, learning skills that aren't in any military manual. Lena said nothing. So here's what I think happened, Carver continued. I think you went to Black Ridge looking for something the military couldn't give you. Advanced tactics, unorthodox methods, the kind of training that turns soldiers into something else. And then you enlisted, kept your head down, and waited for the right moment to use it. That's quite a story, Lena said flatly. Is it wrong? Lena looked at Brennan. He was watching her carefully, expression unreadable. Then at Keller, who looked genuinely confused. Finally back at Carver. You want the truth? Lena asked. That would be refreshing. Fine. Yes, I went to Black Ridge. My father sent me. He knew someone who worked there. Old military buddy owed him a favor. I spent 6 months learning things that most soldiers never see: urban combat, explosives, field medicine, survival in hostile territory. Things that weren't classified but weren't exactly standard either. Why? Because I watched my mother die in a hunting accident when I was 12. Watched her bleed out in the back of a truck because none of us knew what to do. And I decided right then that I would never be helpless again. Lena's voice was quiet but hard as steel. So I learned everything I could. And when I enlisted, I kept learning. Because being good isn't enough. You have to be better. Carver studied her. And Kharkova Ridge? The compound assault? Those were you being better? Those were me refusing to die. By going off script, by improvising, by doing things that look suspiciously like the kind of operations Blackridge used to run. Blackridge taught me how to survive. The Army taught me why. There's a difference. Is there? Carver closed the folder. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a liability. Someone who can't follow orders, who puts herself and her team at risk for reasons we don't fully understand. Lena's hands curled into fists under the table. My team is alive because of what I taught them. Jensen, the soldier from the convoy, is alive because Reeves knew how to stabilize a sucking chest wound under fire. That's not reckless. That's effective. And if you'd failed, if your effectiveness had gotten them killed? It didn't, but it could have. It could have gotten them killed to sit in an observation post and do nothing while 20 hostiles hunted us down. At least this way we had a chance. Carver opened her mouth to respond, but Brennan cut her off. Enough. His voice carried weight, silenced the room. Agent Carver, I appreciate your thoroughness, but I know this soldier. I trained her, and I'm telling you right now, she's not a liability. She's an asset. Carver turned to him. Colonel, with respect, you're looking at this backwards. Yes, Rourke operates outside the box. Yes, she takes risks that make commanders nervous, but she also gets results that save lives and complete missions. That's not a problem. That's exactly what we need in the field. The chain of command is a tool, not a religion. And when the tool breaks down, when comms fail, when extraction gets scrubbed, when the plan falls apart, we need people who can think for themselves. Rourke is one of those people. Carver's expression hardened. You're asking me to overlook a pattern of insubordination and unauthorized action. I'm asking you to recognize the difference between insubordination and initiative. Brennan stood. This meeting is over. Sergeant Rourke is cleared for active duty. If you have a problem with that, take it up with CENTCOM. Carver stared at him for a long moment, then gathered her files. This isn't over, Colonel. It is for now. She left without another word. When the door closed, Keller exhaled. Well, that was fun. Brennan ignored him. Rourke, stay. Lena remained seated. Keller took the hint and left. Brennan sat back down, across from her. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Why didn't you tell me? He asked finally. About Blackridge? It wasn't relevant. It's always relevant. I didn't think so. I learned some skills, moved on, enlisted, and a story. Except it's not, because now counterintelligence thinks you're some kind of rogue operator. Brennan rubbed his face. You should have disclosed it. I was 18. I didn't know I was supposed to. Fair enough. He leaned back. But now we have a problem. Carver's not going to let this go. She's going to dig, and she's going to find every decision you've ever made that looks questionable. And she's going to build a case. Let her. Rourke, I'm serious. Let her build her case, because when she's done, she's going to find exactly what you just said. A soldier who takes risks, gets results, and keeps her team alive. If that's a crime, court-martial me. Otherwise, I've got a job to do. Brennan smiled slightly. You really don't care, do you? About what counterintelligence thinks? No, sir. I care about my team. I care about the mission. Everything else is noise. That attitude is going to get you in trouble one day. It already has. I'm still here. Brennan stood. All right. Here's what happens next. You go back to your team, you continue operations, and you try, just try, to follow the plan occasionally. Can you do that? I always follow the plan, sir, right up until it stops working. That's what I'm afraid of. He headed for the door, paused. For what it's worth, Rourke, I'm glad you're out here. We need more soldiers who refuse to quit. Thank you, sir. He left. Lena sat alone in the conference room, staring at the folder still lying on the table. She reached out, flipped through the photographs one more time. Blackridge. She hadn't thought about that place in years. The truth was more complicated than she'd told Carver. Blackridge hadn't just taught her tactics. It had taught her that survival wasn't about following rules. It was about understanding when to break them. That most people died because they hesitated, second-guessed, waited for permission that never came. Her father had known that. That's why he'd sent her there, and she'd learned the lesson well. Lena closed the folder and walked out. She found her team in the rec tent, playing cards and pretending not to look worried. Cross looked up when she entered. So? Are we screwed? Not yet. That's reassuring, Vargas muttered. Lena pulled up a chair. They wanted to know why we went off script at the compound. What'd you tell them? Reeves asked. The truth. That we had no choice. Kim frowned. Did they buy it? Some of them. Lena leaned forward. Look, I need you all to understand something. What we did out there, it worked. But it also put a target on our backs. Counterintelligence is watching. Command is watching. And if we screw up, even once, they're going to use it as an excuse to pull us. So what do we do? Cross asked. We don't screw up. That's it? That's the plan? That's always the plan. Lena met his eyes. We do our jobs. We follow orders when we can. And when we can't, we make sure we survive to explain why. Vargas shook his head. You make it sound easy. It's not, but it's all we've got. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Reeves spoke. Sergeant, can I ask you something? Go ahead. That story you told Carver about your mother, was that true? Lena's expression didn't change. Yeah, it was true. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. Lena stood. Get some rest. We've got another patrol in 18 hours. She walked out before they could ask more questions. The next 3 weeks were a blur of missions. Phantom 4 ran 6 operations, each one more dangerous than the last. They cleared compounds, disrupted supply routes, gathered intelligence on enemy movements, and every time, Lena pushed them harder, demanded more, accepted nothing less than perfect execution. The team responded. Cross became sharper, faster, less cocky. Vargas learned to anticipate threats before they materialized. Reeves saved 2 lives with field medicine that bordered on miraculous. Kim turned into a communications wizard, pulling signals out of thin air when everyone else heard static. They became good, then better, then exceptional. And people noticed. Major Keller started assigning them the missions no one else wanted. High-risk, high-reward operations that required precision and nerves of steel. Other teams started asking for their support. Commanders started using phrases like elite and top tier when describing Phantom 4. But with success came scrutiny. Every after-action report was reviewed with a microscope. Every decision questioned. Every risk analyzed for signs of recklessness or insubordination. And Agent Carver was always watching. It came to a head on a Tuesday. Phantom 4 had just returned from a 72-hour mission, exhausted, filthy, running on fumes. They'd successfully interdicted a weapons convoy, captured 2 high-value targets, and extracted without casualties. A textbook operation. Lena was filling out paperwork in the ops center when Keller found her. Rourke, we've got a problem. She looked up. What kind of problem? The kind with stars on their collar. He handed her a tablet. Check your email. Lena scrolled through the message. It was from CENTCOM headquarters, flagged urgent. Subject line, Operational Review, Phantom 4. She read it twice to make sure she understood. They're auditing us, she said slowly. Not just auditing, they're sending a review team to observe your next operation. Real-time assessment of tactics, decision-making, adherence to protocols. Keller grimaced. Basically, they're putting you under a microscope to see if you're a genius or a disaster waiting to happen. Who's on the review team? That's the fun part. Guess who volunteered to lead it? Carver. Carver. Keller sat down heavily. She's convinced you're a risk, and she's using this review to prove it. If you step out of line even once, she's going to bury you. Lena set down the tablet. When? They arrive tomorrow. You deploy the day after. What's the mission? High-value target. Taliban commander operating in the Paktia province. Intel says he's planning a major offensive. Your job is to locate him, confirm identity, and coordinate a capture or kill operation. Sounds straightforward. It is, which means if something goes wrong, it's on you, not the mission design. Keller met her eyes. Rourke, I'm going to be blunt. This is a setup. Carver's hoping you'll go rogue, improvise, do something that proves you can't be trusted. Don't give her the satisfaction. I won't. I'm serious. Stick to the plan. Follow every protocol. Don't take unnecessary risks. I never take unnecessary risks. Bullshit. You take risks constantly. You just make them work. Keller leaned forward. This time, don't. Play it safe. Survive the review. Then we can get back to business. Lena nodded slowly. Understood, sir. But as she walked back to her quarters, she couldn't shake the feeling that playing it safe was exactly how people got killed. The review team arrived the next morning, 3 officers and Agent Carver, all carrying clipboards and expressions of professional skepticism. Carver pulled Lena aside before the mission briefing. Sergeant, a word. They stepped into an empty office. Carver closed the door. I want to be clear about something, Carver said. This review isn't personal, it's procedural. But if I find evidence that you're operating outside acceptable parameters, I will recommend your removal from active duty. Understood? Perfectly. Good. Now I've reviewed your mission plan for tomorrow. It's solid, well thought out, almost textbook. Carver's eyes narrowed. Which makes me wonder what you're not telling me. There's nothing to tell. I don't believe you. I think you've already identified 3 different ways this mission could go sideways, and you've planned contingencies that aren't in the official brief. Lena kept her expression neutral. Planning for contingencies is part of my job. Planning is fine. Executing unauthorized actions based on those plans is not. Carver stepped closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to follow the mission plan exactly as written. No deviations, no improvisation, no heroics. If something goes wrong, you call for support and wait for instructions. Clear? Crystal. I'm serious, Rourke. One mistake, and I will end your career. Then I guess I won't make any mistakes. Carver stared at her for a long moment, then left without another word. The mission briefing was tense. Lena stood at the front of the room, her team seated behind her, the review team watching from the back like vultures. She walked everyone through the plan: insertion point, patrol route, target location, extraction timeline. Clean, simple, by the book. One of the reviewing officers raised his hand. What's your contingency if the target isn't at the primary location? We have 2 alternate sites based on pattern of life analysis. We'll check each one systematically. And if he's not at any of them? We gather intelligence from local sources and adjust accordingly. How do you define adjust accordingly? Lena met his eyes. We use our best judgment while staying within mission parameters. That's vague. Flexibility is built into the plan, sir. We can't predict every variable. Carver spoke up. Which is exactly why we need clear protocols. What happens if your team encounters unexpected enemy forces? We engage only if necessary for self-defense or mission accomplishment. Otherwise, we avoid contact and report. Define necessary. If our lives or the mission are in immediate danger. And who makes that determination? I do. I'm the team leader. Exactly, Carver smiled coldly. Which brings us back to the core issue. Discretion. You have a lot of it, and history suggests you don't always use it wisely. Lena kept her voice calm. History suggests I keep my team alive. History also suggests you take risks that endanger others. Name one person I've endangered who didn't volunteer for the mission. The room went silent. Finally, Keller spoke up. I think we've covered the brief adequately. Unless there are any other questions, Phantom 4 deploys at 0600. dismissed. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. The mission was simple, too simple, which meant something would go wrong. It always did. The question was, what would she do when it happened? Follow protocol, like Carver demanded? Call for support and wait, even if waiting meant losing the target or endangering her team, or trust her instincts, make the call, and deal with the consequences. She thought about Kharkova Ridge, about the choice to stay behind, to walk into the enemy outpost, to fight instead of hide. She thought about the compound assault, about the decision to attack instead of retreat, to risk everything on a plan that shouldn't have worked. And she realized something. She'd never played it safe in her life. And the moment she started, she'd lose the edge that kept her alive. But this time, the stakes were different. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving to Carver, to Command, to everyone, that she could be trusted. Lena closed her eyes and made a decision. She'd follow the plan, exactly as written, right up until it stopped working. They inserted at dawn, fast roping from a Blackhawk into a valley thick with morning mist. The moment Lena's boots hit the ground, the review team's presence felt like a weight on her shoulders. Carver and the others were monitoring from the TOC, Tactical Operations Center, watching live feeds from the team's helmet cams, listening to every radio transmission, judging every decision. Phantom 4 is boots down, Lena reported, moving to Objective Alpha. Copy, Phantom 4, proceed as planned. They moved in standard patrol formation, Cross on point, Vargas on rear security, Reeves and Kim in the middle. Lena walked near the front, scanning constantly. The terrain was brutal, steep hills, dense vegetation, narrow trails that forced them into single file. Perfect ambush country. 2 hours in, they reached the primary target location, a small village tucked into a hillside. Intel said the Taliban commander used it as a safe house. Lena glassed the village from concealment. I count 12 structures, minimal activity, no obvious security presence. Could be sleeping, Cross murmured. Or gone. Lena keyed her radio. Phantom 4 to TOC, approaching primary location, requesting permission to conduct close reconnaissance. Carver's voice came back immediately. Negative, Phantom 4, hold position and observe. Do not approach without confirmation of target presence. Lena bit back frustration. Copy, holding position. They waited. An hour passed, then 2. Nothing moved in the village except chickens and one old woman carrying water. This is a waste of time, Cross muttered. Lena agreed, but said nothing. She keyed her radio again. TOC, no activity observed. Recommend moving to alternate site. Stand by. They stood by for another 30 minutes. Finally, Phantom 4, you are cleared to move to alternate site Bravo. Maintain observation protocols. Copy. They moved. Alternate site Bravo was 8 kilometers northeast, a compound on the edge of a river valley. Larger than the village, better fortified with clear signs of recent occupation. Lena's instinct screamed that this was the place. TOC, we have eyes on alternate site Bravo. Multiple heat signatures, armed personnel visible. This looks active. How many personnel? At least 20, possibly more inside the structures. Silence on the other end. Then, Phantom 4, maintain observation. Do not engage. We're analyzing the feed. Lena watched through her scope as men moved through the compound, carrying weapons, loading supplies into vehicles. One of them matched the physical description of their target. TOC, I have possible confirmation on the HVT. Male, approximately 6 feet, dark beard, wearing negative, Phantom 4. We need positive identification before proceeding. I can get closer. Get a better angle for facial recognition. Negative, hold your position. What? Plus, Lena's jaw tightened. The target was right there. If they waited too long, he'd leave. TOC, if we don't move now. I said hold position, Sergeant. That's an order. Lena closed her eyes briefly. This was the moment, the test. She could follow orders, wait for permission, and watch the target slip away. Or she could do her job. Copy. TOC, holding position. But even as she said it, she was already planning. Diamant. They held for another hour. The target, if it was him, moved in and out of buildings, always surrounded by guards. Lena watched, waiting for an opening that never came. Then vehicles started moving. 3 trucks, engines running, men loading gear. "They're leaving," Kim whispered. Lena keyed her radio. "TOC, target is preparing to move. If we don't act now, we lose him. Stand by for air support. ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes. The convoy would be gone in 5. Lena made a decision. "Cross Vargas, you're with me. Reeves, Kim, stay here and coordinate with TOC. "Sergeant?" Reeves's voice was uncertain. "What are you doing?" "Getting positive ID. If it's not him, we report and pull back. If it is, we track him until air support arrives." "Carver's going to lose her mind." "Probably. Move." They moved fast and low, closing the distance to the compound in 3 minutes. Lena led them to a position 30 meters from the main gate, close enough to see faces, far enough to avoid detection. She raised her rifle, peered through the scope, and got a clear look at the target's face. It was him. No question. Phantom 4 to TOC. Positive ID on HVT. Repeat, positive ID. "Where are you, Phantom 4? 30 meters from the compound. We have eyes on target loading into the lead vehicle." Carver's voice cut in, ice cold. "Sergeant Rourke, you were ordered to hold position. I followed orders, then I adapted when the situation changed. You disobeyed. TOC, target is moving. Do we have authorization for air support?" A different voice, Keller's. "Air support is inbound. ETA 8 minutes. Can you track the convoy?" "Affirmative." "Then do it. We'll deal with the rest later." "Copy." The convoy rolled out, 3 trucks kicking up dust as they headed south on a dirt road. Lena and her team shadowed them from high ground, staying just close enough to maintain visual contact. "Kim, are you tracking this?" Lena asked. "Got them on drone feed, sending coordinates to air support." "Good. Stay on them." The convoy moved fast, weaving through valleys and around hills. Lena's team ran to keep up, lungs burning, legs screaming. Then the truck stopped. "What are they doing?" Cross panted. Lena glassed the scene. The trucks had pulled into a narrow canyon, natural cover on 3 sides. Men were dismounting, setting up positions. "They know we're here," Vargas said, "or they're waiting for someone." Lena keyed her radio. "TOC, convoy has stopped in canyon approximately 2 clicks south of alternate site Bravo. They're setting up defensive positions. Advise. Air support is 4 minutes out. Recommend you pull back and let them handle it." Lena looked at the canyon, at the perfect ambush site, at the opportunity slipping away. "Negative, TOC. If we pull back, they'll scatter before air arrives. We need to keep them pinned." "How do you intend to pin 20 hostiles with 3 operators?" "By making them think there's more of us." She didn't wait for permission. "Cross Vargas, spread out along the ridge. On my signal, we light them up, controlled fire, just enough to keep their heads down. Make them think they're surrounded." "This is insane," Cross said. "It's also going to work. Move." They moved. Lena positioned herself on the eastern ridge, Cross to the west, Vargas to the north. A triangle of fire with the convoy in the center. She counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. "Now!" All 3 opened fire simultaneously. The canyon erupted. Bullets cracked off rocks, kicked up dirt, forced the enemy into cover. They returned fire wildly, shooting at muzzle flashes, unable to coordinate because they thought they were surrounded. Lena kept shooting, controlled bursts moving between positions, creating the illusion of multiple shooters. Cross and Vargas did the same. It worked. The enemy hunkered down, stopped trying to flee, focused on defending their position. And then the jets arrived. 2 F-16s screamed overhead, dropped ordnance with surgical precision. The canyon lit up with fire and thunder. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but twisted metal and silence. "Phantom 4 to TOC, target neutralized, area secure." Silence on the radio. Then Keller's voice, carefully measured. "Copy, Phantom 4. Return to extract point." Whoa. The helicopter ride back was silent. Lena knew what was waiting for her. Knew Carver would be furious, knew this might be the end, but she also knew the mission was complete. The target was dead. Her team was alive. That had to count for something. When they landed, Carver was waiting on the tarmac, flanked by the review team. "Sergeant Rourke." "With me." Now. Lena followed her to the same conference room as before. This time, more people were waiting. Keller, Brennan, two generals she didn't recognize, and a lawyer. She was in serious trouble. Carver didn't waste time. You directly disobeyed orders, multiple times. You endangered your team and the mission by engaging without authorization. I completed the mission. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Lena's voice was calm but hard. Because from where I'm standing, we identified a high-value target, tracked him, kept him pinned, and eliminated him. That's a success. You were told to observe only. The situation changed. I adapted. You ignored direct orders. I followed the spirit of the mission even when the orders didn't account for reality. Lena leaned forward. You wanted me to sit on a hill and watch while the target drove away. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. One of the generals spoke up. 2 stars, name tag reading Davidson. Agent Carver, what were Sergeant Rourke's exact orders? To hold position and wait for air support. And what was the mission objective? To locate and eliminate the HVT. Did she accomplish that objective? Carver's jaw tightened. Yes, but then I'm not seeing the problem. Davidson looked at Lena. Sergeant, walk me through your decision-making process. Lena did. She explained every choice, every risk assessment, every calculation that led her to act instead of wait. When she finished, Davidson nodded slowly. That's solid tactical thinking. It's insubordination, Carver insisted. It's initiative. Brennan spoke up. General, I've worked with Rourke for over a year. She doesn't disobey orders for the hell of it. She adjusts when the mission demands it. There's a difference. A dangerous difference, Carver countered. Maybe, but it's also why her team has a perfect mission success rate and 0 KIAs. Brennan met Carver's eyes. You wanted to know if she's an asset or a liability. I'm telling you, she's an asset, one we can't afford to lose. Davidson looked at the lawyer. What's the legal exposure here? Minimal. She completed the mission within the scope of her authorization, even if her methods were creative. Creative, Davidson almost smiled. That's one word for it. He turned to Lena. Sergeant, here's what's going to happen. You're going to receive a formal reprimand for failure to follow specific tactical orders. It'll go in your file. But you're also going to receive a commendation for mission success and exemplary leadership under fire. That's the compromise. Take it or leave it. Lena didn't hesitate. I'll take it, sir. Good. Dismissed. What? Outside, her team was waiting. Well, Cross asked, reprimand and a commendation. They cancel out. Vargas laughed. Of course they do. So we're good? Kim asked. We're good. Reeves smiled. Then let's get out of here before they change their minds. They walked toward the mess hall together, 5 soldiers who'd learned to trust each other in the worst possible circumstances. And as Lena walked, she realized something. She'd proven herself. Not by following every rule, but by knowing which ones mattered. The storm had come, and she'd walked through it on her own terms. The mess hall felt different that night. Maybe it was the way conversations stopped when Phantom 4 walked in. Maybe it was the looks, some respectful, some wary, all curious. Word had spread fast about the canyon operation, about Lena's defiance of orders, about the impossible shot that eliminated a high-value target while counterintelligence watched. Lena ignored it all. She grabbed a tray, filled it with food she wouldn't taste, and sat with her team in their usual corner. For a while, nobody spoke. They just ate, exhausted, processing the day in their own ways. Finally, Cross broke the silence. So, reprimand and a commendation. That's got to be a first. Probably not, Vargas said, but it's definitely a Rourke special. Kim laughed, nervous but genuine. I thought we were done. When Carver started yelling, I was sure we'd all get pulled. We did get pulled, Reeves pointed out, just not permanently. Still counts as a win in my book. Cross raised his water bottle. To Sergeant Rourke, for being just crazy enough to make it work. They all raised their bottles. Lena shook her head, but clinked hers against theirs anyway. To the team, she corrected. You all held it together out there. That's what made it work. We held it together because you led, Reeves said quietly. There's a difference. Lena didn't know what to say to that. so she said nothing. They finished eating in comfortable silence. Then, one by one, they drifted off to their bunks. Cross first, then Kim, then Vargas. Reeves lingered. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine. Why?" "Because you just went to war with counterintelligence and won. Most people would be celebrating. You look tired." Lena considered lying, decided against it. "I am tired. Not of this, just tired of fighting battles that shouldn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean we did our job perfectly. We eliminated a threat, kept everyone alive, and accomplished the mission. But instead of being celebrated, I had to defend myself in a conference room because I didn't follow orders that made no sense." Lena rubbed her face. "I'm tired of proving myself over and over to people who've already decided I'm the problem." Reeves was quiet for a moment. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're not the problem. You're the solution they're too scared to accept." She stood. "Get some sleep, Sergeant. Tomorrow's another day." "Yeah, another day." Reeves walked away, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts. She tried to sleep, gave up after an hour of staring at the ceiling. Instead, she grabbed her jacket and walked out into the night. The base was quiet, just the distant hum of generators and the occasional footstep of a perimeter guard. The sky was clear, stars scattered like broken glass across black velvet. Lena found herself walking toward the operations center, not because she had business there, just because she needed to move, to think, to process everything that had happened. She was halfway there when a voice stopped her. "Can't sleep either?" She turned. Agent Carver stood in the shadows, smoking a cigarette, something Lena had never seen her do before. "Didn't know you smoked," Lena said. "I don't, usually." Carver took a drag, exhaled slowly. "Bad habit I pick up when I'm stressed." "I stress you out?" "Immensely." Carver smiled, cold but not hostile. "Walk with me?" They walked. For a while, neither spoke. Just moved through the quiet base, two people at opposite ends of a conflict trying to find common ground. Finally, Carver broke the silence. "You know I'm not the enemy, right?" "Could have fooled me." "I'm serious. My job is to protect the military from people who abuse their authority, who go rogue, who put missions and egos ahead of lives." She glanced at Lena. "You fit that profile. On paper." "On paper. In reality, you're more complicated." Carver flicked ash off her cigarette. "I've been reviewing your entire career, not just the incidents, everything. And you want to know what I found?" "I'm guessing you'll tell me either way." "I found a pattern, but not the one I expected." Carver stopped walking, turned to face her. "Every time you've broken protocol, every time you've deviated from orders, it's been to save lives. Not to glorify yourself, not to prove a point, to keep people alive who would have died otherwise." Lena didn't respond. "That doesn't excuse insubordination," Carver continued, "but it does explain it, and it makes you a problem I don't know how to solve." "Why do I need to be solved?" "Because the military runs on order, on chain of command, on people doing what they're told even when it's hard. You undermine that." "I don't undermine anything. I just refuse to die because someone in a safe room made a bad call." Carver smiled slightly. "See? That right there. That's the problem. You don't trust the system." "The system left me to die in the Kharkova Ridge. Why should I trust it?" "Because without the system, we have chaos. We have soldiers making decisions based on instinct and emotion instead of strategy and coordination. And with the system, we have soldiers dying because they waited for permission that never came." Lena met her eyes. "I've seen both sides, Carver. I'll take controlled chaos over obedient death every time." Carver took another drag, stubbed out the cigarette. "You're not wrong, but you're not entirely right either. So what happens now?" "Now?" Carver considered. "Now I go back to headquarters and write my report. I'll recommend that you remain on active duty, but with conditions, more oversight, more accountability, clearer rules of engagement. And if I refuse, then you'll be reassigned, again, maybe stateside, maybe a desk." Carver's expression softened slightly. "Look, Rourke, I don't like you, but I respect you, and I think you're too valuable to waste on administrative punishment, so I'm offering you a deal. I'm listening. You keep doing what you do, but you also start training others to think the way you think. Share your experience. Develop doctrine that accounts for the kind of situations you've survived. Carver paused. Turn your instincts into something repeatable, something the system can use. Lena frowned. You want me to teach people how to break rules? I want you to teach people how to survive when the rules fail. There's a difference. It was the first thing Carver had said that made sense. I'll think about it, Lena said. Don't think too long. Offer expires when I leave tomorrow. Carver started walking back toward her quarters. Get some sleep, Sergeant. You've earned it. She disappeared into the darkness. Lena stood alone, processing the conversation. Then she walked back to her bunk and, for the first time in weeks, fell asleep almost immediately. Well, the next morning she found Major Keller in his office. Carver made me an offer, she said without preamble. Keller looked up from his paperwork. Let me guess, stay in the field but develop training programs? How'd you know? Because I made the same suggestion 3 weeks ago. She's just framing it like it was her idea. He leaned back. What do you think? I think it's the first thing she's said that doesn't feel like a trap. That's because it's not. It's actually a good opportunity. You'd stay operational but also contribute to long-term capability development. Best of both worlds. I'd have to write doctrine, manuals, policy. Some of it, yeah. But you'd also get to run exercises, train teams, test concepts in real environments. Keller smiled. Basically, you'd get to turn Fort Bragg into what you wanted it to be. Lena considered. I'd still deploy? When needed. But you'd spend more time building the next generation of operators than running your own missions. Sounds like a desk job with extra steps. It's a leadership job, big difference. Keller pulled out a folder. Look, I'm going to be honest. You're one of the best field operators I've ever seen. But you're also 31 years old with a body that's been shot, frozen, and run into the ground for over a decade. How much longer can you keep doing this? Lena's leg throbbed as if on cue. She ignored it. As long as I need to. Need to or want to? Keller pushed the folder across the desk. This is a proposal for a new training program. Advanced Irregular Warfare Tactics. They want someone to design it, run it, prove it works. I recommended you. Why? Because you've already lived it, and because every operator who goes through your training has a better chance of coming home alive. That matters. Lena opened the folder. Inside were preliminary outlines, budget estimates, endorsements from multiple commands. It was real, serious, important. When do they need an answer? She asked. End of the week. She closed the folder. I'll let you know. Well, she spent the next 3 days on autopilot, running patrols, conducting briefings, going through the motions while her mind worked the problem. Part of her wanted to stay in the field, to keep leading Phantom 4, to keep fighting, to keep proving that she belonged here. But another part, the part that woke up every morning with pain in her leg and scars she couldn't see, knew that Keller was right. She couldn't do this forever. Eventually, her body would fail, or her luck would run out, or both. The question was, what came next? On the 4th day, she got her answer. Phantom 4 was running a routine patrol. Nothing exciting, just showing presence in a contested area, when they came across a checkpoint manned by Afghan National Army soldiers. The ANA commander, a captain named Rahimi, waved them over. Sergeant Rourke, good to see you. You too, Captain. Everything quiet? Too quiet. Taliban pulled back 2 days ago. No attacks, no movement. It makes me nervous. Lena nodded. A quiet enemy was often a planning enemy. Want us to scout the area? See if we can find where they went? I would appreciate that. They moved into the hills, scanning for signs of Taliban activity. 2 hours in, Kim picked up something on the drone feed. Sergeant, I've got movement. 3 clicks north. Looks like a small camp. Lena checked the feed. 4 tents, maybe 6 people, weapons visible. Not a major force, but worth investigating. Phantom 4 to base. We have possible hostile camp at grid November 835 Delta. Requesting permission to observe. Copy Phantom 4. Observe and report. They set up an OP on the ridge overlooking the camp. Lena glassed it carefully, noting details. Older men, not fighters. Women and children. Civilian refugees, maybe, or displaced villagers. This doesn't look like Taliban, Reeves said quietly. No, it doesn't. Lena lowered her binoculars. Kim, can you get audio? Kim adjusted the drone, angled the directional mic toward the camp. Voices filtered through, speaking Pashto, calm, discussing food and water. Definitely not hostiles, Kim confirmed. Lena made a decision. We're going down there. Peacefully. Cross? Vargas? Stay here and cover. Reeves? Kim, with me. They approached the camp slowly, weapons lowered but ready. An older man saw them coming, raised his hands in peace. Lena raised hers in return. Do you speak English? Little, the man said. You American? Yes. We're not here to hurt you. We just want to know if you need help. The man's expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or hope. We need water, medicine. Taliban took our village 3 days ago. We ran. Lena looked at Reeves. What do we have? 2 liters of water, basic first aid, not much. It's something. Lena turned back to the man. We'll give you what we can, and I'll call for humanitarian support. She spent the next hour coordinating with base, arranging for the ANA to deliver supplies, making sure these people wouldn't be left to die in the hills. When they finally left, the old man gripped her hand. Thank you. You are a good soldier. Lena didn't feel good. She felt like she'd done the bare minimum, but she nodded anyway. As they walked back to base, Cross fell in beside her. That was nice, what you did back there. It was the job. It was more than that. You didn't have to help them. Yeah, I did. That's the whole point. Cross frowned. I don't follow. Lena stopped walking, turned to face her team. We're not out here just to kill bad guys. We're here to protect people, to make sure the ones who can't fight for themselves don't get crushed in the middle. If we forget that, we become what we're fighting against. They stared at her. That's what I learned in Kharkova Ridge, she continued, that survival isn't enough. You have to survive for something, for someone. Otherwise, what's the point? Vargas smiled slowly. You've been thinking about this a lot, haven't you? Maybe. And I think I'm done proving myself in the field. I think it's time to help others do the same. Named. She gave Keller her answer the next morning. I'll take the training program. On one condition. What's that? I get to deploy when needed. No full-time desk job. I stay operational. Keller grinned. I'd expect nothing less. Deal. They shook hands. When do I start? Lena asked. 2 months. Finish your rotation here, hand off Phantom 4 to your replacement, then head back to Bragg. Who's replacing me? Corporal Reeves. She's getting a promotion and a team. Lena blinked. She's ready? You trained her, so yeah, I'd say she's ready. Telling her team was harder than she expected. She gathered them in the ready room, same place she'd first met them 6 months ago. They looked different now, harder, sharper, more confident, less like recruits and more like operators. I'm leaving, she said without preamble. Rotating back to the States in 8 weeks. New assignment. The room went silent. What kind of assignment? Cross asked. Training, doctrine development, turning what we've learned out here into something others can use. So you're done with field work? Kim sounded hurt. Not done, just shifting focus. Lena met their eyes. I'll still deploy when needed, but most of my time will be spent making sure the next batch of operators doesn't have to learn everything the hard way. Vargas nodded slowly. Makes sense. You've got a lot to teach. We all do. Lena looked at Reeves, which is why Reeves is taking over Phantom 4. Reeves's eyes went wide. What? You heard me. You're getting promoted to sergeant and taking command. Cross, Vargas, Kim, you're staying with her unless you request transfer. I don't, Reeves stammered. I'm not ready. Yes, you are. I wouldn't recommend you otherwise. But no buts. You've run point on 4 missions. You've kept this team alive through situations that should have killed us, and you think like a leader, even when you don't realize it. Lena stepped closer. I trust you. They trust you. Now you need to trust yourself. Reeves stared at her, then looked at the others. Cross gave her a thumbs up. Vargas saluted casually. Kim just smiled. Okay, Reeves said quietly. Okay, I'll do it. Good, because you're going to be great. The final weeks passed quickly. Lena ran 3 more missions with Phantom 4, each one smoother than the last. Reeves shadowed her on 2 of them, asking questions, taking notes, learning the 1,000 small things that didn't fit in manuals. On the last mission, a simple reconnaissance patrol that went exactly according to plan, Lena officially handed over command. They were standing on a ridge at sunset, watching the valley below turn gold and purple. Any last advice? Reeves asked. Trust your instincts, but verify them with facts. Don't take unnecessary risks, but don't be afraid to act when it matters. Lena smiled. Basically, everything I've been teaching you. That's not helpful. It's not supposed to be. Leadership isn't a checklist. It's 1,000 decisions, most of them in the moment, all of them with consequences you can't predict. Lena turned to her. But here's the real secret. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to care more about your team than your ego. Reeves nodded. I can do that. I know you can. They stood there as the sun dipped below the horizon, 2 soldiers passing the torch in the quiet space between missions. Thank you, Reeves said finally, for believing in me. Thank you for making it easy. The day Lena left FOB Sentinel, the entire base turned out to see her off. She walked to the helicopter with her duffel over her shoulder, trying to ignore the crowd. But she couldn't ignore her team, Phantom 4, standing at attention, saluting. She stopped in front of them. Take care of each other, she said. Always, Reeves replied. Lena saluted. They returned it, sharp and precise. Then she climbed aboard, the helicopter lifted, and FOB Sentinel fell away beneath her. Fort Bragg looked different when she returned. Not physically, but in the way people looked at her, the way they listened when she spoke, the way junior officers asked her opinion and senior officers actually considered it. She wasn't Staff Sergeant Rourke anymore, the operator with the checkered record and the attitude problem. She was SSG Rourke, developer of the Advanced Irregular Warfare program, the woman who'd survived the impossible and turned it into doctrine. The program started small, 20 candidates, hand-picked, eager to learn. Lena designed scenarios that pushed them to the edge, forced them to make impossible choices, taught them that survival wasn't about following rules but understanding when to break them. She ran exercises that mimicked Kharkova Ridge, jammed comms, wounded teammates, impossible odds, and she watched as they struggled, failed, learned, and eventually succeeded. 3 months in, Major Keller visited. Heard you're terrorizing the candidates, he said. I prefer challenging them appropriately. Same thing. He sat down across from her. How's it going? Good. Better than expected. They're learning fast. And you? How are you holding up? Lena considered the question. I'm okay. Some days are harder than others, but I think I'm where I'm supposed to be. Good. Because command is impressed. They want to expand the program, triple the size, turn it into a standard part of advanced training. That's a lot of work. That's why they're giving you help. 2 assistant instructors, administrative support, bigger budget. Keller smiled. You built something important, Rourke. Now you get to watch it grow. 6 months after returning to Bragg, Lena got a call. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Sergeant Rourke? Speaking. This is Agent Carver. I'm calling with an update. Lena sat up straighter. What kind of update? The kind that closes files. My investigation into your conduct is officially concluded. No charges, no restrictions, no further action required. And? And I was wrong. Carver's voice was grudging but genuine. Your methods are unorthodox, but they work. And the program you've built is already showing results. 3 teams credited it with saving their lives in the field. That's tangible impact. So you're saying I'm not a liability? I'm saying you're an asset. A difficult, frustrating, occasionally infuriating asset, but an asset nonetheless. Carver paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. Lena didn't know what to say. Thank you felt wrong. I told you so felt petty. Just thanks for calling, she said finally. Good luck, Sergeant. Try not to start any more wars with counterintelligence. No promises. Carver laughed, actually laughed, and hung up. A year after leaving the field, Lena received a letter. It was from Reeves, written on actual paper, sent through actual mail. Sergeant Rourke, Phantom 4, just completed our 10th mission. 0 casualties, 3 successful HVT captures, 1 humanitarian rescue. We're doing okay. Cross got promoted. Vargas is training new operators. Kim built a drone system that's being adopted across the theater. And me? I'm trying to lead the way you taught me, with instinct, facts, and a refusal to quit. We still talk about you, about the canyon assault, about Kharkova Ridge, about the woman who refused to stay down. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but if you do, I want you to know you didn't just teach us tactics. You taught us what it means to survive with purpose. Thank you, Sergeant Maya Reeves. Lena read it 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her desk drawer, next to her commendation and her reprimand, the 2 pieces of paper that told the same story from different angles. She'd survived, she'd fought, she'd proven herself, and now she was helping others do the same. That was enough. 2 years after Kharkova Ridge, Lena stood in front of a new class of candidates. 60 of them this time, all volunteers, all hungry to learn. She looked at their faces, young, eager, confident in the way only people who'd never been truly tested could be. My name is Staff Sergeant Lena Rourke, she began, and I'm here to teach you how to survive when everything goes wrong, when your comms die, when your team gets scattered, when command writes you off and the enemy closes in. She paused, let that sink in. I'm not going to teach you how to be heroes. Heroes die. I'm going to teach you how to be survivors, how to think when you're terrified, how to move when you're wounded, how to fight when the odds say you should quit. She walked along the front row, meeting eyes. Some of you will fail this course. That's okay. Failure here means learning. Failure in the field means death. She stopped at the center of the room. But if you listen, if you push, if you refuse to give up, you'll walk out of here with something more valuable than any weapon or tactic. You'll walk out knowing that you can survive anything, that you're stronger than you think, that quitting isn't in your vocabulary. She looked at them, the future, the next generation, the ones who would face storms she couldn't imagine. Welcome to Advanced Irregular Warfare. Let's get to work. That night, alone in her office, Lena sat by the window and watched the sun set over Fort Bragg. She thought about the girl she'd been, 18, scared, desperate to prove herself. She thought about the soldier she'd become, hardened, capable, unbreakable. And she thought about the person she was now, still tough, still driven, but also something else, something more. A teacher, a leader, a survivor who'd learned that surviving alone wasn't enough. Her legs still ached sometimes. The scars were still there, physical and otherwise. But she'd made peace with them, because they weren't weaknesses. They were proof. Proof that she'd walked through hell and come out the other side. Proof that she'd refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. Proof that she'd chosen to turn her pain into purpose, her trauma into teaching, her survival into something that mattered. The storm had come. She'd survived it, and now she was teaching others to do the same. That was her legacy. That was enough. Never underestimate the person you've already decided won't make it, because survival isn't about what you think is possible. It's about what you refuse to accept as the end.